At the Windestal Royal Academy of Magic, a new life, the one he had always yearned for, was about to begin. He focused his will, believing that the ability to use magic would be the ultimate experience. With a confident shout, he attempted to cast his first spell, a fireball. But that wasn't the case at all. The spell fizzled, erupting in a pathetic puff of smoke that struck him directly in the face. He collapsed to the ground, dazed, as voices called for a stretcher for Brat-sama. He lamented his own failure. Despite putting on airs, he couldn't even cast a simple fireball. This was his reality. He had become the Black Pig Prince. His consciousness drifted. The world around him shifted from the academy grounds to a modern city street, leaving him to wonder where he was. Then, a vision appeared before him, a man in a suit. He recognized the face as his own. He questioned what was happening, realizing with a jolt that these could be his own memories. The man in the suit, his former self, looked on with a somber expression. A fragmented voice from the past echoed in his mind, strained and full of anguish. The memory sharpened. His past self stood in an office, head bowed, apologizing. An older manager berated him, questioning how he could submit such documents with only an hour to spare. The manager noted that even staying overnight at the company hadn't been enough for him to finish the work properly, and that his very attitude was sickening. With a slam of his hand on the flawed paperwork, the manager delivered a final, harsh command: redo it before the day was over. The memory concluded with his former self, alone at his desk, utterly exhausted. He sighed, admitting he was pooped, and recalled that he used to talk to himself a lot back then. He jolted back to the present, sweat beading on his brow as a voice from nearby asked if he had said something. Flustered, he quickly denied it, stammering that it was nothing at all. His mind, however, was still trapped in the past, replaying the endless cycle of his former existence. He remembered working every day in the same fashion, his manager's voice a constant presence, before the weary return home. After those grueling days, his one and only source of enjoyment was a video game. He would boot up his computer, ready to play Final Quest once more, losing track of how many weeks had already passed in his digital escape. He played until the screen declared that peace had finally returned to the world, all thanks to the hero. It was then that a singular thought consumed him, a deep desire to go to the world of Final Quest. That idle wish had become a terrifying reality. The shock sent his heart racing as he frantically tried to calm himself. He realized he had to remember what happened in the game's plot relative to his current age in this new life. He forced his mind to focus, dredging up the details of the character he had become, Brat von Pistol. He was the first prince of the Pistol Kingdom, a treacherous young ruler enthralled by the Demon King. Brat had used his own citizens to facilitate the Demon King's revival, only to be defeated by the hero and his own younger brother. He knew every detail because of how many times he had played the game. The full weight of this knowledge crashed down upon him. He cried out in despair, questioning why, of all things, he had to be reincarnated as a villainous character. He was now Brat von Pistol, the Black Pig Prince, a villain whose death was already decided within the story. His cry of anguish echoed through the room, and the door was thrown open. A maid with rabbit-like ears burst in, calling out to Brat-sama and asking if anything was the matter. This was his personal maid, Loji. She rushed to his side, anxiously asking if he was hurt and offering to call a healer immediately. She leaned in closer, her face a mask of genuine concern, but he stammered that he was already fine and that she didn't need to do anything unnecessary. His reassurance seemed to make her realize her own frantic behavior. She recoiled, flushing with embarrassment as she admitted to acting impertinently. Bowing deeply, she promised to be more careful from now on and pleaded for him to deal with her leniently. She stood trembling, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. From his bed, Brat von Pistol recognized the signs of fear. The realization struck him with sickening force. He was the one who had been punishing her. It was an utterly unreasonable response to her simply attending to his needs. He looked at the distraught maid, his mind racing. Loji, he thought, the truth solidifying. The one who had repeatedly punished this girl was him. He reasoned that an apology wasn't quite right. After all, she had only been worried about his well-being. Instead, he offered a simple, heartfelt sentiment. "I'm always putting you through a lot." "Thank you," he said. Loji's eyes widened in surprise. Her surprise gave way to a choked gasp as she processed his words, her expression one of utter disbelief. The disbelief shattered, and she burst into tears. Startled by her sudden outburst, Brat called out, asking why she was crying and if he had said something strange. Through her sobs, she apologized, explaining that she had never expected to hear words of gratitude from him. She had only ever been scolded, always trying to meet his expectations. He tried to reassure her, placing a hand on her head and insisting that he should be the one thanking her, acknowledging that his own attitude had caused her unnecessary anxiety. She continued to apologize, feeling she had lost her composure in his presence. She felt that she deserved a penalty, having been constantly scolded for trivial matters, and was now being comforted by him instead. He then made a solemn promise, declaring that from now on, he would become a man and a lord she would not be ashamed to serve. He asked if she would continue to be his maid. Overcome with emotion, Loji tearfully accepted, pledging to serve him with her whole heart. Later, alone in his bed, his thoughts turned to his grim future. His absolute priority was to avoid death. He recalled the plot of Final Quest. In 4 years, the original Brat would be tempted by one of the 4 heavenly kings, assassinate his own father, and then meet his end. He understood then that simply trying to be careful would not be enough to escape this spiraling descent into darkness. He stares at his reflection in the ornate mirror, pinching a chubby cheek. The thought is unavoidable. He is ugly. He realizes that to change his fate, he must also change his appearance, starting with a diet. This decision ignites a sudden fire within him. He leaps onto his bed, shadowboxing with manic energy, declaring aloud that he will diet and train his body. He laughs, imagining himself beating the Demon King and the 4 demon generals to a pulp, before collapsing onto the bed, panting for breath. Catching his breath, he calls out for his maid, Loji. A small voice answers from beneath his own bedsheets, confirming she is right there. He asks her to remove all the sweets and other such treats from his room. Surrounded by a mountain of desserts, Loji is surprised, asking if they were not to his liking. He assures her they were absolutely delicious, but explains that he has decided it would be a good idea to lose some weight. He then instructs her to distribute the pastries throughout the slums and orphanages. Remembering her poor household and many siblings, he suggests they would be delighted to receive them, also mentioning the sweets preserved with frost magic. Overcome with emotion at this unexpected kindness, Loji can only stammer his name. With a confident smile, he entrusts the task to her, which she eagerly accepts. The following day, he walks towards the back of the royal palace, heading for the first military training ground, a place he recalls from his past life's memories. As he arrives, he finds the grounds empty save for a large tree. Beneath it, a man in armor is fast asleep. Brad approaches, realizing he's being completely ignored. He decides it can't be helped and resolves to use the other side of the training area. Just as he turns to leave, thinking about the croquettes he brought, he recognizes the man, the 7th hero, the demon slayer, Guras Striesman. A new idea takes hold. He spins around and shouts, making a direct request. Make me your disciple. The hero's reply is immediate and blunt. Impossible. Guras claims it's too bothersome, and that training Brat would leave him no time to sleep, making him a poor opponent for the knights. Guras then questions the prince's sudden change of heart, pointing out his previous aversion to training and his obviously unexercised body. Brat admits he has slacked off, but insists he wants to correct himself. Though he calls the situation hopeless, Guras concedes that, despite everything, there might just be a chance. He stood firm, knowing he couldn't afford to budge. This training event was of critical importance to avoid a death ending. He recalled from his past life that the character hiding in the military training grounds was none other than Guras. He then asked the hero if he would consider lowering his head for him, but Guras was dismissive, predicting that at best, the prince would just snap and run away. In response, Brat threw himself to the ground, prostrating himself completely and begging Guras to make him his disciple. The hero looked down, taken aback by the display. Onlookers whispered in disbelief, recognizing the infamous black pig and wondering if they were dreaming. Seeing this, Guras declared that he would test him. Brat reflected on his past as a corporate slave, a life that had shaved off his pride and ingrained a different sense of things. He knew this was coming. In the game, Guras always tested the protagonist before agreeing to train them. He steeled himself for the trial. Anticipating the attack, Brat raised his arm just in time to block a powerful kick from Guras aimed directly at his head. The force of the blow sent him stumbling backward with a grunt of pain, while his attacker looked on. He landed clumsily on the ground, clutching his head and thinking how foolishly he had just rolled over. Guras stood over him, his face cast in shadow and his thoughts unreadable. On the sidelines, unseen observers began to mock him, laughing at how lame he was and telling him to know his place. Ignoring the jeers, Guras extended a hand toward the fallen prince. Brat looked up from the ground, wondering if his situation was truly hopeless. But the hero's expression suddenly split into a wide, cheerful grin as he announced that Brat had passed. The prince could only stare in stunned silence. Still processing the news, he hesitantly asked if this meant Guras would truly train him. The hero confirmed it was fine. Overjoyed, Brat scrambled to his feet, thanking him profusely and eagerly declaring that he was looking forward to it, addressing him as master. As the young prince celebrated, Guras considered the test. He was surprised. The boy had reacted as if he knew exactly where the attack was coming from, rendering his own defense useless. The thought excited him to an unusual degree. He had a hunch that from now on, things would become very interesting. He beamed, his face alight with pure joy and determination. His new master, Guras, acknowledged him simply Bratkun as Brat's joy erupted into a loud, heartfelt vow to do his best. Guras watched him with a sharp, analytical gaze. The hero silently questioned whether the boy was the real deal or merely a sham, resolving to force the truth out of him. And so, despite the lingering misunderstanding, Brat von Pistol was formally accepted as the disciple of the hero Guras, marking the first step on the path of his new life. In the early morning light of a shared dormitory, Loji stretches with a great yawn, feeling utterly sleepy. From the top bunk, a colleague calls down to her, noting the terrible look on her face and asking if she is all right. She lets out another sleepy yawn, a small tear forming at the corner of her eye, and reassures her friend that she is fine, just a bit sleep-deprived. Her colleague, a maid named Lena, is now up and observes that their master seems unusually motivated recently, though she doesn't know why. She wonders aloud if he is pushing himself too hard. Another maid nearby asks what kind of clothes she should exert herself to find, causing Loji to gasp in shock at the conversation. Lena gently pinches Loji's cheeks, chiding her that her cute face will go to waste with such dark circles under her eyes. She concedes that Brat-sama has become more handsome, but dismisses it as him just being a hormonal, perverted boy. The other maid laughs, telling Loji not to be treated like a child and to rest while their master's kindness lasts. Loji pulls away, insisting they shouldn't be so mad. She passionately defends Brat-sama, declaring that his kindness isn't a whim and that he has always been kind, including in this very moment. She puffs her cheeks in a pout, conceding that she will be careful. However, she warns them not to force themselves either, as it would be sad if they were to collapse. As she speaks, Lena's attention is drawn to the window. Her expression shifts as she spots two figures outside, murmuring, "Speaking of the devil." The other maid joins her at the window, identifying Brat-sama below. Outside, Gyuras urges a clearly exhausted Brat to get up for one more round. The maid remarks that Loji is rooting for him today, too. He is completely spent, lying face down in the dirt. Brat thinks to himself that he expected Gyuras to quit after a day, but a week has already passed. He also notes how frequently Gyuras is with him now. Watching this display from the window, Lena turns back to Loji with a skeptical expression. Seeing the awful look on Brat-sama's face, she asks Loji if she can really support someone like that. She found herself blushing, thinking how cool the newcomer was, and wondered why her cheeks were suddenly so red. Down below, Brat and his maids also took notice. Looking out a window, she spotted the figure approaching from another building, as Brat recognized him. Albert. He stared intently as the young man, flanked by two of his own maids, walked confidently in their direction with a serene smile. This was none other than the Pistol Kingdom's second prince, Albert von Pistol. From her vantage point, Lena wondered aloud what he could possibly want, while Loji noted with concern that he was heading straight for Brat. The scene shifts back to the training grounds, where Brat sat exhausted on the tiled floor, with Gyuras standing over him. He looked down at the boy, remarking on the unexpected arrival of the guest. The young prince shot up in surprise, questioning what Albert was doing there. Prince Albert, with a regal air, greeted Gyuras and thanked him for training Brat so early. The maids nearby began to murmur, recalling that the two brothers were known to be on bad terms. His mind raced. This situation was a chance to turn the tables. He recalled that in the game, he was killed by this very man. If he could repair their sibling relationship now, he might just be able to avoid that death ending. He pushed himself to his feet to confront his brother. Albert asked what business Brat had with him. Brat retorted that he had asked Albert to train him, but was refused. With a dramatic flair, he turned to Gyuras, accusing him of being heartless for training someone else instead. The older man placed a hand on Brat's head, explaining that he had turned Albert down at first as well, but found Brat's earnest request interesting. His gaze then hardened as he turned to Albert, asking if training his brother was more interesting than training him. With chilling finality, Gyuras declared, "You're boring." The second prince's reaction to the insult was not anger, but a sudden burst of laughter. He seemed genuinely shocked, admitting that while he thought his own swordsmanship was superior to his older brother's, he might have overestimated his abilities. The confrontation had begun moments earlier. Albert had approached Brat, feigning ignorance of his presence. He explained that he was looking for Gyuras and happened to overhear that he was training Brat. With a condescending tone, he questioned why Brat was so eager for Gyuras' tutelage before proposing they have a morning training session together. He continued, laughing off the idea of training with his incompetent younger brother as an amusing joke, though he noted Brat's surprising talent for humor. Despite this, he agreed to a session, clarifying that it would be a match. This immediately caught Gyuras' attention, who eagerly declared it looked like fun. Brat, however, was stunned by the sudden challenge. Gyuras leaned in close to Brat, encouraging him to accept. As a powerful incentive, he made a promise. If Brat were to win the duel, he would teach him a good skill. The implication of such a reward left Brat speechless. He understood. The entire reason he'd become Gyuras' disciple was to acquire skills. Though reckless, he felt he had no other choice and accepted the terms. Albert watched with a placid smile as Gyuras celebrated the impending fight with unrestrained glee. With the terms set, the three gathered in a courtyard. Gyuras stood between the two princes, ready to officiate. He asked if they were ready to begin, establishing that the match would last until the morning duties bell rang. Albert dismissed the time limit as unnecessary, boasting he would finish things in an instant. Gyuras then laid out the rules. Both were to fight with the intent to kill, holding nothing back, and he would only intervene if it became too dangerous. From the sidelines, Loji clasped her hands and wished Brat the best of luck. The duel began. Brat immediately surged forward, closing the distance as Albert stood his ground, calmly watching his approach. He pushed aside his fear, telling himself there was no use feeling weak-kneed now. He had to bring out every ounce of power he possessed. With a shout, he brought his sword down in a powerful overhead strike. His brother met the attack with blinding speed. The force of the parry was immense, jarring Brat to his core. He was stunned by the weight behind his brother's simple block. A dreadful realization dawned on him. While he was at best level 18, Albert was clearly closer to level 30. He found himself completely on the defensive, his sword clashing against his brother's. Albert, a genius without a doubt, taunted him, asking why he wasn't attacking. Brat knew the truth. He was doing his best just to block, and Albert was toying with him, fully aware that he couldn't possibly launch a counteroffensive. From the sidelines, the maids watched on. Two of them were in awe of Albert's skill, questioning if it was even a real match. Logie, however, clenched her fists, insisting that the real fight was only just beginning, her faith in Brat unshaken. Suddenly, Gyras appeared beside them, startling Logie. He calmly remarked that they still didn't know how this would turn out. He continued, acknowledging that the difference in strength was overwhelming, like that between an adult and a child. That, he explained, was precisely why it was strange for a match like this not to be settled in an instant. Back in the center of the hall, the clash of steel echoed as the duel continued. Breathing heavily, Brat grew frustrated. His attacks, aimed perfectly, were achieving nothing. Then, a realization struck him. Albert's attack pattern was the same as in the game Final Quest. He recalled the sequence perfectly: a sweeping sideways motion, a downward vertical swing, a turn, and a slash from the shoulder. He knew what was coming next: a diagonal slash from the upper right. As Albert began a large rotation for an overhead downward swing, Brat saw his opening. He thought his brother was being too obstinate. This was his chance, now or never. With a yell, he lunged forward, believing his timing to be perfect. He would reach him. Albert, however, simply grunted, refusing to let him succeed, and adjusted his stance to meet the charge. It was no use. His agility was just too low. As the realization that he was finished washed over him, Albert's face twisted into a triumphant laugh, declaring it was the end for his elder brother. At the last possible second, Gyras appeared, catching Brat and stopping the blow. He declared the match over. Brat, stunned but saved, heard his master announce the result to a confused Albert. Since the bell was quicker, it was a draw. His brother, however, refused to accept the outcome. Albert protested loudly, insisting that if his final attack had connected, the victory would have been his. He declared that he could not agree with the result of a draw. Frustrated, he turned to leave the training grounds. Brat called out for him to wait, but Albert, gritting his teeth in anger, began to walk away. The younger prince shouted over his shoulder that this was not a loss. He conceded that he had been caught off guard by his elder brother's cunning tricks, but that was all. Brat's voice cut through his tirade, telling him not to get cocky. Albert stopped and turned back, demanding to know what he wanted. Brat explained that this was a good opportunity to tell him something important. He continued with an earnest expression, admitting that the two of them had not gotten along well up to this point. His brother listened as Brat acknowledged that despite being his younger sibling, he thought Albert was amazing. He then humbly asked if Albert would be his training partner again on another occasion. After a moment of silent consideration, Albert simply scoffed and told his maids it was time to go. As the small group departed, Gyras watched from a distance, sighing with exasperation. As Albert departed, Gyras approached Brat, ruffling his hair affectionately. Brat cried out in surprise as his master praised him, stating that he had nothing to say except well done. Gyras revealed he understood that Brat, knowing the vast difference in their strength, had been strategically brawling with the sole aim of achieving a draw from the very beginning. He continued, noting that while the result was a draw, Brat had shown him something awfully good. With a knowing smile, Gyras then made an offer. He would teach Brat the skills he so obviously desired. The young prince erupted with joy, shouting his thanks. From a distance, his maids Logie and Lena observed the scene. Logie clasped her hands, thinking how cool Brat was, while Lena looked on with skepticism. With this success, Brat took another step forward, moving further away from the path that led to a death ending. A week has passed since the incident between Brat and Albert. For the maid Lena, the memory of Brat forcing a draw with his brother still feels like a dream. Her thoughts are interrupted as a cheerful voice greets her. Startled, she turns to see Brat Sama, wishing her a good morning. 2 weeks have now passed since Brat was accepted as Gyras' disciple, and his transformation is remarkable. Looking refreshed and refined, he informs the maids that he is heading out to the mountains for a while. Logie stares, astonished at the change in him in such a short period. As he walks down the hall, an older servant watches him go, tears welling in his eyes. He remarks on how dignified and valiant the prince looks and promises to prepare a delicious dinner, urging him to return early. Brat's popularity among the staff is clearly growing. Lena watches him depart, a bead of sweat on her temple. She's amazed, realizing that it's not just his appearance that has changed, but the attitudes of everyone around him as well. She and another maid observe Logie frantically chasing after the prince. Lena notes that with Brat's newfound popularity, Logie's rivals will surely increase, making things difficult for her. The other maid agrees as Logie's desperate calls for Brat to wait echo down the hall. Brat, however, has already reached his destination, the dragon house. Inside, a magnificent white dragon rests. He greets the creature warmly, asking if it has been well. The dragon, Gilgard, lets out happy cries as Brat affectionately rubs its head. The prince laughs, pleased that his companion recognized him, even with his changed appearance. He leans in closer to Gilgard's face, a determined look in his eyes. He tells the dragon there's a place he wants to be taken to today. Just as they prepare to leave, Logie appears in the doorway, breathless. She pleads for Brat Sama to wait just a sec. He calmly addresses his frantic maid, Logie, who questions his sudden plan to seclude himself in the mountains after leaving only a farewell letter. He explains that he won't be returning for a while, and placing a hand on her head, expresses his wish that she would rely on him more. As he gently pats her head, Loji freezes, stammering in confusion. He internally notes how cute she is, which causes her to flush bright red in an overwhelmed gasp. The affectionate gesture leaves her momentarily giddy, but her panic quickly returns. She insists he cannot leave right now, pleading for him to wait until at least the following afternoon. As he turns to depart anyway, he casually asks for her reasoning. Her expression shifts to one of disbelief. She reminds him that he seems to have forgotten Marie-sama's visit to the royal palace today, an appointment he himself had stressed she was not to forget. Standing before the stables, Loji looks downcast, quietly remarking on how mean he is being. Just then, a new voice cuts through the air. A young noblewoman, accompanied by a butler, expresses her disappointment. She explains that she came to visit due to his recent absence from school, only to discover he had forgotten the appointment he made with his own fiancée. The woman is Marie L. Forktas, daughter of a duke and Brat's fiancée. Brat utters her name in surprise, while a completely panicked Loji stammers out that Marie has indeed arrived. He offers a hesitant smile, but Marie's gaze remains cold and unimpressed. Breaking the silence, she notes the chill in the air and suggests they continue their conversation inside. Brat, with a flustered Loji just behind him, quickly agrees. She stood in the lavishly decorated room, her profile turned away, her expression a mask of solemn contemplation. As they sat across from one another, she calmly sipped her tea while Brat's composure shattered. He stared, aghast, demanding to know if she truly intended to break off their engagement. He rose to his feet, questioning the abruptness of her declaration and asking why she was bringing it up so suddenly. His question was met with a calm response. Marie acknowledged that her timing was rushed, but suggested that if he searched his own memories, he would surely find the reasons. The mention of his past caused a bead of sweat to form on Brat's temple. Instantly, a montage of his past self's failings flashed through his mind. Gluttony, sloth, lust, greed. The realization struck him with full force. He had truly overdone it. He looked up as she continued, explaining that she had already conveyed her intentions to His Highness. The reply she received was that his foolish son has a myriad of flaws and that there was no right to stop her. Therefore, she concluded, the only step left was to get his own acknowledgement. He stammered, trying to slow the proceedings by asking if this wasn't too rushed a decision. Her gaze remained fixed on him as she confirmed her understanding. He was fine with breaking off the engagement, wasn't he? Her calm questioning continued. She expressed surprise that he would try to stop her, stating she had always assumed he looked down on and despised her, especially since he had forgotten their appointment that very day. Flustered, Brat leaned across the table, apologizing for forgetting their date and insisting that he was trying to change. His pleas seemed to register. She conceded that his appearance had changed so much that he was almost unrecognizable from the last time they met. A flicker of hope appeared in Brat's eyes. Then, her voice turned cold. She explained that for a long time, on numerous occasions, she had gotten her hopes up only to be disappointed. Because of this, she could no longer have faith in him so easily, and she was certain the people around him and the general population felt the same. She clarifies her position, stating that for him to be recognized by others, he must achieve a great feat. She offers an example: winning the championship of the upcoming sword dance festival. Brat recognizes the name as the annual battle tournament held at the Academy of Magic to determine the strongest student, but he dismisses such a thing as being out of his reach. His demeanor suddenly shifts, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. He asks her directly if she would reconsider annulling their engagement if he were to become the champion. The proposition stuns Marie, who can only utter a shocked plea for him to repeat himself, believing such a feat to be impossible for him. He seizes her hand, his voice filled with newfound resolve. He swears in the name of the sword god Balzac, the protector of their country, that he will win the Sword Dance Festival's championship without fail. On that condition, he asks that she desist from breaking the engagement. Marie, flustered by his sudden intensity, questions his actions. With his vow made, he departs, proclaiming that he must now grow stronger. As he leaves, the nearby butler remarks to Marie that things have become troublesome, calling Brat's goal an unlikely achievement. Left alone, Marie reflects inwardly, wondering if she should have told him the real reason she wanted to end things, concluding that there are some truths he is better off not knowing. Moments later, Brat is soaring through the sky, his hair tied back and protective goggles over his eyes. He marvels at the superb view from his vantage point. He arrives at his destination, Sky Mountain, a colossal, spiraling structure within the mountain range of the heavens. After dismounting from his dragon, Gilgard, he praises the creature and instructs it where to land. Thanking Gilgard one last time, he tells the dragon to wait for him. Gazing at the entrance to the massive peak, he steels his resolve, ready to face his very first dungeon. With a determined grin, he declares his intent and charges forward into the unknown. He steps on the first floor of Sky Mountain. The cavernous interior is exactly as he remembers it from the game, Final Quest. He moves deeper inside, calculating that with only a month until the festival and his level at a mere 20, he must become stronger with maximum efficiency. As if summoned by his thoughts, a group of reptilian monsters emerges from the shadows, growling and ready to attack. He is immediately confronted by small, lizard-like monsters upon entering the dungeon. With a confident smirk, he dismisses them, declaring that creatures of their caliber are not his intended opponents. Instead of engaging them, he cheerfully waves them on, announcing that he will let them slip away as they scurry past. He has no use for such weak foes. His plan is to pursue only the most efficient method of leveling up. His expression shifts to one of tense anticipation. He has found his true target. Before him lies a massive, white serpent. He notes with satisfaction that it is a rare monster, and that it took him half a day of searching to finally come across it. The creature lets out a low hiss, its back studded with gleaming, crystalline gems. He identifies the beast as an orichalcum snake, a level 25 creature known to be easily frightened. Realizing it will flee at the slightest provocation, he knows he has only one chance. As the snake rears up, he shouts and prepares to strike. With a powerful lunge, he executes a penetration slash, piercing cleanly through the serpent's head and felling it instantly. He celebrates his victory. The skill learned from Gyura's Sand proved perfect against a monster with high physical resistance. Not only did his level increase from a single kill, but the creature also dropped a piece of orichalcum. Energized, he resolves to continue leveling up this way. As he prepares to move on, he is shocked to see a party of adventurers ahead. He instantly recognizes their leader as Mina, one of the 7 heroes from the game's final quest, and unintentionally calls out her name. The cat-eared woman turns, surprised, and asks how he could possibly know it, leaving him stunned by his own mistake. The Kate Sith dual swordsman, Mina Libert, studied him with a curious gaze. She asked if he was a young master from a noble family, given his appearance. He stammered, quickly apologizing for startling her and introducing himself as Brat. To cover his slip, he explained that he had visited the Kate Sith settlement with his father and had remembered her name simply because he found her cute. Her tail twitched in agitation as she became visibly flustered by the compliment. Believing his ruse had worked, he pressed on, asking why she was here and noting it was unusual for a Kate Sith to be in such a place. She explained that she was conducting an exploration, a preliminary investigation of the area. She elaborated, revealing that in a month's time, her party intended to form a large-scale subjugation force to conquer the Sky Mountain dungeon and defeat the Cyclops within. He immediately understood their objective: the subjugation of the Cyclops that ruled the dungeon's depths and held the Kate Sith village in its thrall, demanding sacrifices. When Mina questioned his detailed knowledge, he quickly fabricated another excuse, claiming he was told about it during his visit. Her anger flared at his words. She demanded to know what an outsider could possibly understand, accusing him of suggesting they simply watch as more sacrifices were made. As he tried to protest, she cut him off, stating that the decision had already been made back in her settlement, and warned him to take care. As he bid her farewell, she walked away, her thoughts troubled as she quietly questioned her next move. He watched them go, a deep sense of unease settling over him. According to his memories of the game, the Cyclops was meant to be defeated by a hero party, one that included his brother Albert and Mina, but that event was not supposed to occur for another 4 years. He considered the disparity in power. The Cyclops was around level 25, while Mina was likely only level 20. He concluded that, as things stood, she was probably not strong enough to succeed. He weighed his options, his brow furrowed in thought. While he was worried, the Cyclops subjugation was an event meant for the distant future. It was better not to meddle too much with the established course of the story. Most likely, he reasoned, the girls would find the tables turned on them anyway. With that grim conclusion, he decided to return for now. As he walked away into the cavern, Mina watched him depart, a curious expression on her face. She thought to herself what an odd guy he was, and just like that, the two went their separate ways. In the Kate Sith village, flames consume the wooden structures as a young girl flees in terror. A colossal, one-eyed monster, identifying himself as Cyclops of the Demon King's 4 demon generals, laughs maniacally. He declares himself the new king of the settlement and demands sacrifices to stop his assault. Watching the destruction, the village elder questions the creature's motives. He recalls that the Demon King was supposed to have been sealed many years ago by Gyurasama and the legendary 7 heroes. The Cyclops bellows his objective. To end the Demon King's slumber, he requires massive quantities of magic power. He proclaims that the Kate Siths, as embodiments of that power, are ideal sacrifices, especially now that years of peace have made them complacent and weak. A young Mina and her mother look on in fear. His words are cut short as a man steps forward, drawing a knife. He coolly asks who the monster is calling complacent and weak. Mina and her mother stare in wide-eyed shock. The Cyclops laughs, finding it interesting that a sacrifice would present himself so bravely. As the village chief cries out the man's name, Libert San, the warrior stands firm, challenging the beast to come at him. He charges, convinced that fighting is their only chance for survival. But as he closes the distance, the massive Cyclops vanishes into thin air, leaving him stunned. The creature instantly reappears behind him, mocking his assumption that its large body meant it was slow. Before Libert can react, the Cyclops strikes him down with a single, devastating blow. Mina and her mother cry out his name in horror. As Mina screams for her mother, the Cyclops grabs the woman. With a brutal swing of its weapon, the monster ends the life of the fallen warrior while his daughter watches, paralyzed by terror. His victory absolute, the Cyclops laughs and declares that the Kate Siths will now provide him with all the sacrifices he requires. The moment triggers a memory for Mina of her family, mother, father, and herself huddled together. That day was several months ago. Now, Mina clenches her fist, her face a mask of grim resolve. She whispers to herself that she absolutely cannot lose. She is visibly tense, a tremor running through her hand. Her cousin, Igord, places a hand on her shoulder, advising her to relax. He warns that if she remains so wound up, she'll lose fights she should have otherwise won. As their party proceeds down a stone corridor, he tells her not to be so eager. He reminds everyone that they have prepared endlessly for this day, and he is sure that if they work together as one, they will be victorious. She concedes that he is right, but a sliver of doubt remains. She turns to her companions, asking for confirmation that they properly carried out a preliminary investigation a month prior. Steeling herself, she clenches a fist and mutters that everything will be fine. With renewed determination, she loudly declares her readiness to proceed. Her resolve brings them before a massive, ornate door. She announces to her party that they have arrived at the Cyclops stronghold, located in the deepest section of Sky Mountain, and asks if they are all ready. With a great heave, she pushes the heavy door open just enough to peer into the darkness beyond. Her eyes widen in disbelief at the sight that greets her, a shocked gasp escaping her lips. The great hall is not empty as expected. Instead, the Cyclops sits upon a makeshift throne, flanked by monstrous beasts and surrounded by a host of lesser demons. Mina cries out, demanding to know what is happening. Her elven companion expresses her confusion, stating that their investigation showed the lesser monsters were supposed to be away. The robed woman looks on in horror, realizing the truth. They were set up. From his throne, the Cyclops laughs, declaring he was tired of waiting. Mina asks how he could have known they were coming. With a sinister grin, the monster reveals his power, stating how ironic it is that he can see through all the feeble thoughts of insignificant cats. His taunt echoed in the chamber. Mina's blade trembled as the grim realization struck her. Their every move had been predicted long ago. Despite the shock, she rallied, shouting orders to her companions. They were not to engage the lesser monsters, but to aim only for the Cyclops. The hulking creature simply laughed from his throne, mockingly wondering aloud how many of them would survive his trap. Far from that desperate battle, somewhere else in the world, a clandestine meeting was taking place. In a grand, shadowed room, two figures sat opposite one another at a large round table. One of them, a figure in a large wizard's hat, explained that they were showing this vision because Giras had asked to see the deepest section of Sky Mountain. Giras, his expression unreadable, coolly asked what their intentions were in sharing this with the group. He stared intently into a crystal orb resting on the table, which displayed a clear image of Mina and her party, trapped and facing the Cyclops' horde. As he watched, a third individual at the table, a woman with long, light hair, casually told the hatted figure not to get so worked up. In response, the figure slammed their hands on the table, shouting not to be ignored. The woman mused that Giras had been like that since the old days. The hatted figure, flustered, muttered that they were several hundred years older and should act more maturely, before formally introducing himself as Merlin, the great sage of the seven heroes. The woman then revealed her own identity, Selly, the Virgin of Salvation, another of the seven heroes. She continued to tease Merlin, suggesting that perhaps others would notice them more if they acted more assertively. She pointed out that their small stature and other aspects of their appearance caused them not to stand out. Selly then cooed that Marin was so cute, deliberately using the wrong name. This prompted an outburst from Merlin, who insisted they were not small by choice and vehemently corrected her, shouting that their name was Merlin. Their bickering was cut short by Giras. Without looking away from the orb, he simply stated, "You guys are surely loud." His companions questioned his motives. Selly, with a gloved finger to her lips, asked Giras why he was showing them this particular battle, noting that such fights were common. She pressed the issue, stating that for him to deliberately display this during a round-table meeting must mean it held some special significance. Merlin, seated nearby, also demanded not to be ignored. Giras responded with a dismissive smile, claiming he didn't intend to show it to them at all. He simply wanted to watch it for his own amusement. With a sigh, Merlin conceded, suggesting they end the transmission since their time was limited, and the image in the crystal orb began to fade. He quickly told them to wait. Merlin questioned this, expressing his distaste for watching the Kate Siths meet their seemingly inevitable deaths, declaring the outcome was clear as day. Giras countered, assuring him they wouldn't suffer any losses by continuing to watch. Leaning back with a confident smirk, Giras propped his feet on the table. He assured them he shared their distaste for such spectacles, then revealed the true reason for his certainty. Brat would be there. Back in a mountain pass, the battle raged. At Mina's command, the Kate Sith warriors unleashed a volley of arrows. The projectiles struck the Cyclops, but the massive creature barely registered the impacts, merely uttering an uninterested "oh." With their ammunition dwindling, Mina focused her resolve on their single objective. As long as they could destroy its eye, they had a chance. She silently urged the last of their arrows to find their target. Her prayer was answered. A single arrow found its mark, piercing the Cyclops' massive eye. The beast howled in agony, and as it reeled, Mina seized the opportunity, shouting for the vanguard to press the attack. The creature staggered backward, its immense hands covering the grievous wound, its groans of pain echoing through the pass. With their foe blinded and disoriented, the vanguard charged. Mina led the way, dashing under the giant's guard to strike at its legs, her fellow warriors following suit in a coordinated assault. She charges forward, fueled by vengeance for her parents and the suffering of her village. The attack seems more effective than she anticipated, as the Cyclops groans in apparent pain. She vows to settle all accounts, certain he will regret underestimating her. Her confidence shatters as the beast's pained expression twists into a grotesque, wide-eyed grin. He mockingly announces he was just kidding. Mina freezes, realizing her attack had no real effect. In response, he swings his massive club in a devastating arc, scattering her entire party across the stone floor. Staggering from the impact, Mina cries out, desperately asking if everyone is alright. She looks back at the towering fiend, demanding to know how his eye is completely unharmed. The Cyclops chuckles, condescendingly suggesting she try using her impaired intellect to figure it out. Nearby, a small, winged creature with a single eye hovers silently. A horrifying realization dawns on her. A magic barrier must have been generated by another monster. Despite the despair, she forces herself up, declaring that she hasn't lost yet. He looms over her, declaring the fight is over. The Cyclops identifies her as the village chief's daughter, sneering that she learned nothing from her father's foolish rebellion. He tells her to watch and witness the result of her own folly. Overwhelmed, Mina can only gasp for breath and apologize to her fallen comrades. As the monster raises its arm for the final blow, a brilliant flash of light streaks through the air. The Cyclops lets out a piercing, agonized scream. The light fades to reveal a man standing between her and the beast. With his sword drawn, he calmly apologizes for being late. She stares up at her savior, her mind reeling in disbelief. Stunned into silence, she can only stammer, questioning who he is and why he is there. She stared up at her rescuer, bewildered. He smiled down at her, explaining that he didn't need a particular reason to rush to the aid of someone as cute as her, especially when she was in such a predicament. His words caught her completely off guard. Flustered, she stammered that this was no time for jokes, questioning what he was even saying. He assured her he wasn't joking before formally introducing himself. His name, he declared, is Brat von Pistol, the first prince of the Pistol Kingdom. He explained that he had learned of the predicament facing the Kate Siths, the kingdom's sworn friends, and had come forth to assist them. Before the massive, one-eyed Cyclops, Brat finally arrives, facing Mina. He apologizes for being late, explaining that he had to make necessary preparations for this very day. A brief glimpse reveals him effortlessly dispatching powerful orichalcum snakes to level up. Mina stares, processing his sudden appearance. She stammers, asking if he is truly a prince, the first prince of the Pistol Kingdom. He turns his head slightly, confirming her suspicions. He apologizes for deceiving her, admitting he had his reasons for not revealing his true identity. However, he adds, there is no longer any need to hide it this late in the game. Her shock is palpable. Kneeling on the floor, Mina remarks that he is nothing like the rumors she's heard. She recounts the common tales, that the first prince is an evil, ugly pig, an inept so profound that his younger brother, the second prince, is certain to become the next king. Brat simply laughs, a bead of sweat on his temple. He readily confirms her account, admitting there's no doubt he is the very same evil, ugly pig prince she speaks of. He explains, however, that he recently had a change of heart and corrected his ways. The Cyclops, listening in, scoffs at the notion, declaring that only a fool among fools would so brazenly appear in a place like this. In response to the taunt, Brat calmly agrees. He states that he must be the only person foolish enough to do something like this while being a prince. Mina watches him, her entire perception of him shifting. This person, the first prince of the Pistol Kingdom, is completely different from the man she thought she knew. Her cheeks flush as a new realization dawns on her. He's actually quite cool. She even remembers how he casually called her cute. Brat, his expression now serious, simply says, well then, his focus returns to the mission. He issues a command to Mina. You all bring your injured comrades with you and get out of here. Stunned by his words, she questions what he intends to do alone, her eyes widening in horrified understanding. Before she can protest, a swarm of small, dark familiars, each a single eye with bat-like wings, descends upon the Cyclops, beginning their relentless assault. In response to his defiance, the Cyclops lunged forward, its massive hand outstretched to crush him. He turned his back to the monster, addressing Mina directly. She watched him, her mind racing with the terrifying knowledge of the Cyclops' power, its ability to heal by spawning limitless minions. Despite this, Brat calmly declared his intention to handle the creature. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She shouted at him, questioning what he was talking about. It was unreasonable, she insisted, reminding him that he himself had previously admitted there was no chance of victory. He calmly clarified that he wasn't ordering them to stay and fight. He would face the Cyclops alone, by his own free will. The Cyclops overheard, its single eye wide with amusement as it laughed at the notion that Brat could defeat it. It mockingly asked if he was dumb. The creature continued its tirade, questioning if Brat truly believed he was stronger just because he'd managed a single surprise attack that took its arm. It dismissed him as a blockhead, warning that it wouldn't be so conceited. The Cyclops' amusement had soured. Its interest dampened. It now promised to slaughter every last one of them without exception. Roaring for him to disappear, the monster swung its massive, spiked club downward. Mina cried out a warning, her voice filled with terror. But the impact never came. Mina looked on, bewildered. The Cyclops itself was stunned, its single eye wide with shock as it realized its club was completely immobile. It demanded to know what was happening, what Brat had done. The reason became clear. Brat was holding the enormous weapon aloft with a single hand. He wondered aloud if the Cyclops had stopped applying force, remarking on how light the club felt. The monster grunted in disbelief, unable to comprehend how a puny human could possess such strength. From a distance, Mina watched, utterly stunned. It seemed impossible that he had stopped an attack from a Cyclops. The creature pointed a finger at him, arriving at a conclusion. It accused him of using strengthening magic, asserting that there could be no other explanation. Mina, too, seized on this idea, thinking that it must be the case. He smiled, dismissing the idea of strengthening magic entirely. Tapping his own temple, he echoed the monster's earlier insult, asking if it was perhaps dumb. He explained that the Cyclops should have been able to realize the truth immediately just by observing the fluctuations of the magic power he was currently clad in. He calmly corrects the enraged Cyclops, who demands to know who is being called dumb. Brat clarifies that the creature isn't dumb, merely a blockhead, causing the monster's single to twitch with fury as it struggles to regain its composure. In response, the Cyclops swings its massive club, convinced there must be some trick to Brat's defense. The monster resolves to simply continue its straightforward assault until whatever technique Brat is using runs out. It continues to attack, wondering aloud how long its opponent can maintain his composure. Brat, however, coolly informs the creature that its efforts are useless, no matter how many times it tries. With a booming laugh, the Cyclops unleashes a continuous barrage of attacks, demanding to know how long Brat can withstand the onslaught before it begins to pant from the exertion. Standing completely unharmed amidst the shattered ground, Brat remarks that, as expected, even a muscle brain like the Cyclops is finally beginning to notice the truth. There's no trick. The Cyclops stares, its single eye wide with disbelief, utterly speechless at the revelation. Realizing it must resort to overwhelming force, the monster bellows a command for its minions to attack. Brat watches this development, thinking to himself that this cannot be happening. A swarm of small, bat-winged creatures with single eyes descends upon him. He dryly remarks on the cruelty of unleashing such numbers against a lone individual. Just as the minions close in, a hexagonal, fire-resistant magic barrier springs into existence before surprised Mina, summoned with a simple snap of an unseen person's fingers. Surrounded by the swarm of dark minions, Brat considers his next move. He recognizes the need to eliminate them, but resolves that he must not harm the Kate Siths in the process. He raises a hand, a small flame flickering to life in his palm. With quiet focus, he incants the spell. Burn up, fire wave. The Cyclops watches, initially relieved. He scoffs at what he perceives to be simple low-tier magic, certain it won't work. His confidence evaporates as a colossal wave of fire erupts from the ground, instantly incinerating the entire swarm of minions. The creature's single eye widens in utter disbelief. Below, still shielded by the glowing hexagonal barrier, Mina stares with her mouth agape, equally stunned by the display. Brat scratches the back of his head, relieved that the spell worked as intended, admitting to himself it was his first time using it. From within the barrier, Mina expresses her shock, unable to comprehend how a third-tier spell could possess such destructive power, noting it is completely different from any fire wave she knows. The Cyclops trembles, sweat dripping from his brow. His mind reels as he tries to process the reality of the situation. He questions if he is dreaming, unable to accept that all of his subordinates were obliterated by what should have been a simple spell. Brat calmly suggests that the creature's nightmare may very well be real. In response, the Cyclops' body transforms, its skin darkening and its muscles bulging as horns and spikes erupt from its head and shoulders. Unfazed, Brat asks if this is its true form and challenges it to reveal its power. He correctly deduces that the creature's critical assessment systems have triggered its ultimate form. With the battle escalating, he decides it's time to end things. The transformed Cyclops can only stammer, overwhelmed by the turn of events. Cornered, the demon general resorts to threats. He bellows that his other subordinates are stationed in the Kate Sith village, ready to massacre everyone on his signal if Brat attacks. Mina cries out, calling him a coward, but Brat simply offers a quiet, knowing smile. His expression remains serene and confident. Looking directly at the desperate Cyclops, he gives his permission. Do as you will. He watches as Mina's expression shifts to one of utter shock, the Cyclops looming behind her equally taken aback by his nonchalant response. He then clarifies his confidence, stating that of course he has compassion for the villagers. He reveals that before arriving, he had already visited the village and dealt with all of the Cyclops' subordinates. He adds with a knowing smile that he anticipated such a cowardly tactic, especially in a final quest scenario. The demon general roars in frustration, realizing he's been completely outplayed, his entire strategy preempted and dismantled. In fact, the villagers had been so grateful for his intervention that they had presented him with a celebratory cake as a token of their thanks. The Cyclops trembles, unable to process the turn of events. He mutters in disbelief, insisting there must be some mistake. After all, he is an elite monster. His mind reels at the implication that a mere human could exist who not only surpasses him in strength, but also in strategic cunning. He, The great Cyclops, endowed with overwhelming talent, who had made both enemies and allies alike yield before him, was being humiliated. His pride shattered, the demon general abandons all thought and lunges forward with a furious roar, intent on destruction. Yet, with a simple, almost casual movement, Brat sidesteps the reckless charge, letting the demon's momentum carry it past him. The Cyclops hurtles uncontrollably into the distance, his own attack leading to his undoing. His massive, headless body crashes to the tiled floor with a thud. Brat stands calmly before the fallen demon, his sword sheathed. Below, Mina stares in wide-eyed disbelief, realizing the creature was felled with just one sword strike. The demon's severed head lies on the ground, sputtering in denial. It insists that it's impossible, that someone like Brat couldn't have defeated it. Brat coolly replies that he did, right here and now. It lets out a booming, maniacal laugh, admitting that it was a big mistake to lower its guard against a mere human. The Cyclops' tone shifts, declaring that Brat is too dangerous. It states that for the sake of its majesty's eventual awakening, it cannot allow someone like him to exist. The demon's head resolves to take care of the threat immediately, at any cost. Its single eye begins to glow with immense power. Sensing the imminent danger, Brat's eyes widen in alarm as he shouts Mina's name. He commands her to take the injured and any unscathed comrades and flee as fast as possible. Mina looks back, confused by the sudden, urgent order. She begins to protest, her voice filled with concern for him. But he cuts her off, telling her not to worry and to just go quickly. Understanding the gravity of the situation, she complies, rallying the other villagers to hurry and escape the chamber. As they retreat, Brat turns back to the glowing head. He states that this is the best he can do with the time he has, promising to protect the fleeing villagers with his magic. Declaring he'll take the demon with him, a massive explosion erupts. A thunderous crash echoes from the direction of the explosion, shaking the very ground. Mina, who had been fleeing, spins around at the sound. Her eyes go wide with disbelief as she calls out his name in a confused whisper, questioning what she is hearing. Her gaze fixes on a massive, reinforced door, now completely blown inwards and wreathed in smoke. The sheer destructive force of the impact is undeniable. A cry of pure alarm escapes her as she screams his name into the dust-filled corridor. Brat, through a ruined, vine-covered gateway, a group of Sith villagers peer into the darkness left by the explosion. One of them calls out a name, questioning if Brat is there. Amidst the shattered stone and debris, Mina Libert's face is etched with worry. She looks around frantically, whispering to herself, asking where he could be. Her fear gives way to resolve. She orders those with healing magic to look after the injured, declaring that the rest will accompany her to find Brat. She recalls with certainty that just moments before, he had formed a barrier to protect them all. She scrambles through the wreckage, desperately shouting his name and pleading for him to answer if he can hear her. Another young Sith girl coughs in the dust-filled air, tears welling in her eyes. She sobs that she never even got the chance to thank him for saving them. From a large mound of rubble, a voice weakly asks for a hand, and an arm emerges from the debris. Mina spots it immediately, her eyes widening as she shouts for everyone to come quickly, for he is here. With Igor's help, Brat pulls himself free from the wreckage. He is covered in dust, but appears unharmed, offering a faint, reassuring smile. He is immediately enveloped in a tight hug by Mina, who is overcome with emotion. She thanks him, crying with relief as she confesses that she thought he had died and is overjoyed that he is okay. His survival sparks a wave of celebration among the Sith. Cheers erupt as they call it a miracle that he survived such an explosion, hailing His Highness Brat von Pistol. Later that night, under a crescent moon, he holds Mina close. He apologizes for making her worry and calmly reassures her that he does not intend to die so easily. He joins the Sith villagers in a lively celebration under the night sky. With mugs raised high, he, Mina, and Igor let out a cheer. Inside one of the huts, the party continues, with one villager remarking how unbelievable it is that Prince Brat of the Pistol Kingdom is among them. Brat simply replies that a lot has happened. The village elder approaches him, expressing immense gratitude. He declares that from this day forward, Brat will be known as the giant killer hero for having put his life on the line to save them. Brat, smiling sheepishly, insists they are exaggerating and that people are getting the wrong idea. Nearby, Mina's expression darkens with intense admiration as she thinks to herself how truly amazing Brat is. He watches Mina, noting how easily she got drunk, and wonders aloud what will happen now, admitting he has no clue. Suddenly, a flushed and unsteady Mina points directly at him. She loudly proclaims him the village's hero and demands that he get engaged to her. Her outburst sends a shockwave through the party, and a powerful voice yells for everyone to shut up. The chaotic scene gives Brat a painful flashback to drinking parties with a power-harassing boss from his past life. Deciding he's had enough, he slips away, muttering that he has something left to do to finish the job. Outside, away from the celebration, he finds a group of monsters waiting for him in the quiet village path. The small, single-eyed creature at their head speaks, confirming that they have been waiting for him. The creature's large eye stares intently, as it formally thanks great Bratsama. It explains that thanks to him, they have been freed from the control of the Cyclops and vows that they will, without fail, repay his kindness one day. He tells the monsters they don't need to repay him. Instead, he wants them to keep a promise from earlier, acknowledging the hardship they must have faced as the original inhabitants of Sky Mountain. The creature agrees, asking him to leave it to them. It promises they won't hurt anyone and will do their best to protect people. Hearing their pledge, he extends a hand toward the lead creature, a faint glow emanating from his fingertips. He proposes that they make a contract. As his finger touches the creature's head, the light intensifies. This is the Tame mechanic, a skill that allows one to befriend monsters after a battle when used with a monster tamer ring. The creature is overcome with emotion, shocked that he has even been given a name. Brat smiles warmly and calls him Laud, telling the newly named familiar that he'll be counting on him from now on. Under the crescent moon, Laud begins to cry tears of joy. Within a meeting room, Marie expresses her disbelief that Brat actually defeated the Cyclops. Mina confirms it, calling him a total monster for having progressed so far in just a month. Marin is equally stunned, remarking that Brat seems like an entirely different person compared to when he fought his brother, the second prince. Finding the conversation enjoyable, Mina suddenly announces she must take her leave for a more important matter. As she departs, she reminds the others that Brat's participation in the upcoming Sword Festival is an event not to be missed. Marie calls out in surprise, questioning what could possibly be more important than their current meeting. Her words catch Marin's attention. He murmurs to himself, processing the news of the Sword Festival, an academy tournament for the Pistol's youngsters, and confirms that this means Brat will be making an appearance there. At this, Marie's eyes light up. Declaring herself Brat's newest fan, she insists that she is going and that Marin should come along. He flatly refuses, telling her to go with Guras if she wants. Marie protests that he's being unfair, while Guras' voice cuts in, calling her an airhead for forgetting they are still in a meeting. A tense silence falls between Marie and Marin. She suddenly relents, agreeing to go. With great affection, she exclaims that she adores Marin, reminding him that he is the only one who can take her there with his magic. He crosses his arms, making it clear she shouldn't misunderstand his intentions. He states that sooner or later, he must ascertain Brat's abilities for himself. Besides, he adds, with his power, they can all attend the festival and still have plenty of time to finish their meeting. With the matter settled, Marin turns to continue their discussion, only to find that Guras is gone. He erupts in frustration, shouting and demanding to know where Guras went. Meanwhile, in a separate dimension between the human and demon realms, stands the Dream Castle. This fortress serves as the base for the Demon King's army, where they plot to awaken their lord. Inside, a small, goblin-like demon cries out in agony. The cry is met by a powerful voice echoing from a throne at the top of a grand staircase. The voice questions whose throat the subordinate claimed a human could reach, reminding him to watch his words, as the foe has only managed to defeat the likes of the Cyclops. The goblin-like demon cowers, begging for mercy and apologizing for his impertinence to his lord, Beelzebub. Seated on the throne, the figure known as the gluttonous devourer, Beelzebub, smiles. He muses that he was curious what the messenger would say, and finds it amusing to be intimidated by such a minor threat. He then calmly tells the trembling demon that he is not some kind of monster. He casually lashed out, his whip-like weapon striking the goblinoid messenger and dissolving him into dust. His feathery black wings twitched slightly. He chuckled, a wide, predatory grin spreading across his face. The messenger should rejoice, he thought. Had His Majesty already been awake, a fool like that would have been damned to an eternity of torture and living hell. His amusement faded into cold calculation. Still, he mused, it would be best to nip this potentially dangerous bud sooner rather than later. Elsewhere, another high-ranking demon considered the situation. He acknowledged that while the human prince was not an obstacle at present, it would be problematic if he grew to rival the strength of the seven heroes. He resolved not to underestimate him, as the Cyclops had, and to prevent anyone from interfering with their carefully designed plans. Back in the throne room, a skeletal figure approached Beelzebub, asking permission to dispose of the messenger's remains. After receiving a curt yes, the subordinate audaciously added that while he agreed with eliminating the human, Brat, they must also consider the presence of Guras, Streisman, and Pistol. He considered this, tapping his fingers. It was true, the Demon Slayer was quite difficult to deal with. He stated that he could continue with his original preparations and later devise a countermeasure to ensure the prince's demise. A new voice interjected, suggesting that to eliminate the prince without the Demon Slayer noticing, they would need someone who could go about it quietly. Beelzebub's lips curled into a smirk. From the shadows, a wolf-like figure emerged, baring his fangs and eagerly volunteering his services. He stepped forward, flanked by two others. He introduced them as the Garlov brothers, masters in the art of transformation, perfectly suited to carry out such a mission in absolute secrecy. Beelzebub was pleased. He commanded them to go forth to Pistol immediately and teach the human firsthand the folly of bearing arms against them. The brothers accepted with pleasure. A new figure emerges, the doll master Rionetta. Her associates observe her arrival. One man with light hair questions the wisdom of leaving a task to those beasts, while another woman with long, light hair looks on. Rionetta, however, declares that she doesn't mind handling matters herself. Her male associate asks if she has a specific target, adding that he has no reason to refuse her command. Rionetta calmly replies that it's nothing of the sort, dismissing the act of erasing a human's existence as a trivial matter. She continues, explaining that a direct approach would be dull, akin to taking candy from baby. Therefore, she announces her intention to put on a grand show. Her associate repeats her words, questioning the idea of a grand show. With a soft laugh, REINCARNATES confirms his understanding. She elaborates that this event will be a major step toward their ultimate goal. They have found a useful puppet in Pistol, she says, and this will prove to be very entertaining. She then turns to her small doll, seeking confirmation. Right, Arietta? The man with light hair grins, finding her plan interesting. He gives his assent, telling her to do as she pleases. REINCARNATES closes her eyes, replying that she would have done so regardless of his permission. Meanwhile, in a sun-dappled forest, Brat von Pistol and his dragon, Gilgard, prepare to depart as Mina Libert watches from short distance. She breaks the silence, asking if he is already leaving. He confirms her suspicion, admitting that he had intended to leave the previous night, but ended up staying too long. Placing a hand on Gilgard, Brat looks back at Mina and promises they will meet again soon. She watches him, silent, simply acknowledging his words. She called out to Brat, promising to see him soon. As he turned to leave, she stammered, her face flushed, struggling to find the right words. In a sudden burst of courage, she closed the distance between them, grabbing him by the collar with a determined stride. Leaning in close, she placed a kiss on his cheek, her tail twitching with nervous energy. With her heart pounding, she finally confessed that she liked him. Before he could fully react, she shoved him towards Gilgard, urging him to leave immediately. Brat, still stunned by her words, could only call out her name in surprise. He settled onto Gilgard's back and, looking over his shoulder, affirmed her wish to meet again. And so, the Black Pig Prince began his journey home. As he flew off into the distance, she waved a cheerful goodbye. She knew that back in Pistol, a great challenge awaited him, the Sword Festival. Meanwhile, in a stark, sterile hall, the hem of an elaborate dark gown swept across the polished floor. On a balcony overlooking a strange, massive eye in the sky, the doll master REINCARNATES stood with a placid smile, unaware of the hell that was about to be unleashed. At 12 years old, Brat von Pistol sits comfortably, munching on snacks from a box. He finds this life of leisure quite enjoyable. His quiet moment is interrupted as a maid peeks into the room, apologizing to His Highness and explaining that she is quite busy. The Black Pig Prince has returned home. She informs him that Marie Sama is here. Brat's face sours at the news, wondering why she has come again and remarking on her persistence as Marie appears in the doorway. He stubbornly refuses to leave his room, declaring he won't go out no matter what. Marie, also 12, calls him stubborn and questions why he stays cooped up, suggesting that even a long horseback ride would be more entertaining. She presses the issue, reminding him that as his fiancée, she was told by her mother that they should support each other. Brat furiously rejects her concern, shouting that he doesn't care and ordering her to get out immediately, telling her never to return. Her expression falls, and after a moment of silence, she quietly accepts his demand. If that is what he wishes, she will not come back. The finality of her words causes his eyes to snap wide open. He jolts awake, calling out for Marie before realizing he is on Gilgard's back. A wave of relief washes over him as he understands it was only a dream. His relief is palpable as he looks ahead and announces their arrival at the Pistol royal capital, Forflash. He observes the city streets, noting the floating magic balls that serve as basic infrastructure. It seems to him that preparations for the Sword Festival are already well underway. He reflected on his past, realizing that before he corrected his ways, he had always been supported by Marie. With renewed determination, he resolved to win the championship at the Sword Festival, earn proper recognition, and finally make her happy. His thoughts were interrupted by the present. He instructed Gilgard to lower their altitude and prepare to enter the castle. As they began their descent, a sudden, piercing scream echoed up from the city below, catching his immediate attention. Looking down, he saw the source of the chaos. Two massive, wolf-like beasts were rampaging through the streets. He recognized the creature's class instantly. A werewolf lord, a monster of the same caliber and strength as a cyclops. He questioned why such a powerful beast was here. On the ground, one of the werewolves loomed over a familiar figure, its glowing eyes fixed on her. It growled, demanding to know who she was. It was Logie. Despite her fear, she stood her ground, warning the beast not to take another step. She shouted for it to get away, then yelled for someone named Lena to run. From his vantage point, Brat recognized his maid in peril. He watched as the werewolf dismissed the small girl as a mere obstacle. He understood she was protecting her friends. Though he hadn't wanted to stand out, he found himself contemplating his next move as the situation grew more desperate. A massive werewolf lunges forward with a guttural roar. Reacting in an instant, Brat von Pistol shoves his maid, Logie, out of the path of the beast's claws, shouting for her to move. Logie squeezes her eyes shut as she is pushed to safety. The creature's jaws snap shut just past his head. Having dispatched the threat, he turns back toward Logie, his immediate concern for her well-being as he asks if she is okay. In the background, another maid, Lena, stands ready with her sword drawn. Logie, wide-eyed and trembling, can only stammer his name in disbelief. Nearby, Lena expresses her own shock, marveling that he defeated the monster with a single attack. The surrounding guards are equally stunned, with one shouting at the others for having forgotten His Highness's face. He offers Logie a gentle smile, reassuring her that it's okay now and praising her for doing well. As Logie calls his name again, Lena chides her, reminding her that Brat can hear her. With a calm expression, Brat confirms that he is indeed himself. Overwhelmed with relief, Logie bursts into tears and throws herself at him, wailing his name and confessing how terrified she had been. Brat appears slightly taken aback by the sudden, emotional outburst. Once she has calmed down, he asks what happened. Lena expresses her relief that everyone is safe, while Logie, now composed, bows deeply to offer their profound gratitude for his timely rescue. Logie recounts the events, explaining that she and Lena were shopping in the public square when a monster appeared. She reveals that Albert-sama and some knights tried to fight it, but couldn't even make a dent. Brat is surprised to hear his brother was involved. Logie confirms it, adding that Albert was defeated before Brat arrived and should be receiving medical attention. He takes in the information, glad that nothing more serious occurred. His mind, however, drifts to the world he knows from the game. An event like this was never supposed to happen. He recalls that werewolves can change into humans, making it no trouble for one to infiltrate a city. This fact deepens his suspicion. Werewolves are an intelligent race. They aren't supposed to behave in such a violent and flashy manner. He concludes that the situation is truly strange, and that there must be another purpose behind the attack. His train of thought is broken when Logie calls his name. She beams at him, welcoming him home and declaring how proud she is of how gallant he has become. After praising his amazing feat, she reveals the real reason for her excitement. She managed to register him for the upcoming sword festival just before the deadline. Brat is left speechless as she cheerfully states that he will definitely be victorious. Following his maid's insistent registration, Brat finds himself standing before the grand staircase of the Wind-Destal Royal Academy of Magic. He sighs, remarking to himself that it has been a very long time. As he begins the ascent with Logie trailing behind, a bead of sweat forms on his temple. He feels a sense of dread, thinking that this is no good at all. Logie, however, is frantic with encouragement. She insists it's high time he attended school, arguing that everyone would be shocked to see how strong he's become. Strong enough to defeat a monster in a single blow. She reassures him that there's still time to rest before the sword festival, and that by attending, he's setting a good example for the other students. Brat quietly concedes that he would have to go sooner or later. His return does not go unnoticed. As he walks through the academy's halls, he immediately feels the weight of numerous gazes upon him. He overhears female students whispering amongst themselves, wondering who the handsome gentleman could be. They comment that the academy hasn't had anyone with such an air since Albert-sama. Brat realizes with a start that he has changed so much, they can't even recognize who he is. The whispers turn to recognition as one student connects him to the rumor of the hero who defeated the monster in the city. Another swoons, remarking on how cool he has become and how he has changed on the inside to serve the people. The praise makes Brat intensely uncomfortable as he recalls being bullied in the past. His unease is validated when a male student points him out, asking if he isn't the infamous Black Pig. Another young man with spiky hair scoffs, dismissing the rumors as baseless. He loudly proclaims that the Black Pig couldn't possibly have become handsome and defeated a monster, suggesting they're mistaking Brat for someone else. The spiky-haired student steps forward, addressing Brat directly by name. He introduces himself as Dino Schwarzer, Brat's classmate, and declares that he cannot believe the stupid and hopelessly ugly Black Pig is the same person everyone is talking about. At the academy, Logie erupts in anger, shouting at a freckled student that he is being rude to her master, Brat-sama. Her outburst catches Brat's attention, and he calls out her name in surprise. The other student, Dino, looks on, a flicker of recognition in his eyes as he identifies her. Stepping forward protectively, she loudly proclaims that he is none other than Brat von Pishtel, the first prince of the Pishtel kingdom, causing Brat to stumble back in surprise at her zealous defense. The tension breaks as Logie covers her mouth, apologizing for her own rudeness. Brat laughs it off, remarking to Dino that it's been a while. Dino recalls that this must be the personal maid of the infamous Black Pig Prince, noting that Brat has changed so much he didn't recognize him, but concludes that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree regarding their troublesome nature. Dino's expression twists into a sneer as he mocks Brat, suggesting that a good-for-nothing master has a maid befitting his service. The sharp insult leaves Logie utterly shocked. Before she can respond, Brat steps in front of her, his gaze fixed on Dino. He asks what Dino is looking at, stating coldly that while he doesn't care about personal insults, he will not tolerate any abusive language directed at Logie. He continues, telling Dino that Logie never touched him and that he should stop dramatizing the situation and degrading her. Dino smirks, completely unfazed. With a dismissive wave of his hand, he challenges Brat, asking what he'll do if he doesn't want to stop. In an instant, Brat's hand erupts with a brilliant magical aura. He seizes Dino's wrist, his eyes glowing with intensity, and declares that he won't let him refuse. Dino recoils, his face a mask of terror at the overwhelming power being unleashed. The display leaves Dino sweating and speechless. Nearby, other students take notice. One girl whispers to another that Dino looks like he's in trouble, while her friend simply comments on how handsome Brat appears. He seethes with rage, shouting at Brat not to underestimate him and demanding he take back his words. The confrontation is abruptly halted by a sharp command to cut it out. A figure stands over the scene, intervening. Brat looks up in surprise, recognizing his brother, Albert. With a hand to his temple and a look of annoyance, Albert asks Brat what is the matter with him. Albert then addresses Dino, telling him not to cause any further embarrassment, as the shame of a close aide reflects on him as well. Dino meekly agrees. Albert's gaze then hardens as he looks back at Brad, repeating his command to stop. The tension shifts as Albert notes that one of his associates was causing trouble for Brad. He expresses relief that Brad is okay, having heard he was injured the day before. Brad dismisses the concern, retorting that his maid was also being rude. His brother's face darkens with fury. Albert glares, questioning if that was a veiled reference to his own defeat by the same monster Brad had killed. In response, Brad flashes a wide, cheerful smile, insisting that of course it wasn't. He claims he was simply worried and wanted to see if Albert was truly unharmed. Albert angrily rejects the gesture, accusing Brad of feigning concern only to catch him off guard for a future assassination attempt. Stunned by the accusation, Brad declares he won't fall for Albert's act either and vows to defeat him at the sword festival. Turning to leave, Albert delivers a final, cryptic warning. He tells Brad to remember that he doesn't seem to be aiming for the throne, nor will he simply hand it over. As Albert walks away with a compliant Dino in tow, Brad is left standing alone, completely bewildered. He silently questions the meaning of his brother's words about the throne. He found himself at the center of a sudden uproar, the students around him buzzing with excitement. The news was spreading rapidly. The next king would be decided at the sword festival. As his peers interpreted this as a sudden declaration of a fight for the throne between the brothers, he could only wonder if he was being misunderstood once again. Despite the brewing political storm, a quiet sense of relief washed over him. For now, he felt he had successfully managed to avoid a death flag, and that would have to be enough. His moment of contemplation was shattered by a frantic cry from a young attendant. She urged Brat Sama to look at the time, exclaiming that being late on his first day back was no joke. And with that panicked realization, his school life officially began. With the sword festival now looming, a series of new and exciting days had started. Elsewhere on the academy grounds, a mysterious hooded student announced they were off to class, receiving a cheerful farewell as they departed. In a sunlit classroom, Brat von Pistol attends a lecture on the principle of equivalent exchange, a concept from a foundational alchemical text co-authored by Paracelsus and the great sage Merlin. He recalls the specific text being referenced, a co-authored work on advanced alchemy. The lecture seems to be of little interest to him. With time on his hands, he decides to review his objectives and plan for what comes next. Later, he sits at his desk, mapping out his future. He has confirmed his death flag in this new life and resolves to avert it within the next 4 years. As he writes, his maid Logi looks on with a cheerful smile, unaware that a mysterious masked figure is observing him from the darkness outside his window. The observer is none other than the Demon King Beelzebub. Brad understands that the Demon King's top commanders are moving according to a fixed scenario, and he realizes that to survive, he must solve the core problems and alter the future itself. A determined, almost wicked grin spreads across his face. However, he has a plan. Back in the classroom, he assesses his current standing. His level is 56, while the average for his peers, most of whom are asleep at their desks, is a mere 10 to 15. At this rate, he thinks it will be a breeze. And then, his thoughts turn to a critical future event, the Sword Dance Festival. He knows that if the scenario plays out, Marie will suddenly break their engagement after he wins. He is determined to prevent that tragic outcome. A small, cheerful spirit seems to offer encouragement, declaring that he won't lose. Despite the bravado, Brat remains pensive, acknowledging that no matter how strong he becomes, the possibility of failure is never zero if he has to face it all alone. This thought leads to a sudden, crushing realization. He has no friends. Even after being reincarnated, he is utterly alone. The weight of this fact brings tears to his eyes, while the small spirit beside him frantically tries to get his attention. He looks down at the ring on his finger, a sudden realization striking him. He has a companion after all, even if it isn't human. With newfound resolve, he clenches his fist and declares to the silent classroom that he will do it. His outburst startles an elderly instructor, who stammers, asking His Highness if he intends to answer the question. A nearby student expresses his surprise, but Brat confidently tells him to leave it to him. He then launches into a detailed explanation, stating that creating a philosopher's stone requires 2 major processes. First, one must find a high-density magic material, illusionary silver, and extract Yggdrasil's dew. He continues, explaining that the alchemist Paracelsus used a device called a theater cavus for this, but failed at the final step, solidifying the 7 congruent materials. The other students murmur in awe at the depth of his knowledge. The one beside him exclaims that it's wonderful, just as expected of a Pistol Prince. Brat feels a wave of relief, pleased with himself. He recognizes the small, elf-like instructor as a quiz-giving character from the game Fake IQ, and silently thanks the knowledgeable old man for the opportunity. Just then, a loud crash echoes from outside, sending a plume of dust into the air. Startled, his classmate wonders what happened. Brat, however, immediately identifies the sound's origin as the magic training grounds and thinks of a specific girl. His expression turns serious as he looks out the window. He wonders if it is indeed her, and considers the implications if it is. Without a second thought, he bolts from the classroom, running down an arched stone corridor. He tells himself he has to hurry. He arrives at a wooden door marked 5th Magic Training Ground. Peeking inside, he announces that he heard something and is coming in. The door opens to reveal an empty, silent training ground. He stands in the doorway, disappointed, concluding that whoever was there is already gone, likely having returned home. Inside what appears to be an armory, Brat von Pistol comes across a young woman with long, dark braided hair, dressed only in simple undergarments. As he questions if he's in the right place, she turns, the sound of metal clanking as she moves, and curtly tells him he is being rude. Brat's eyes widen in surprise. His immediate reaction is to fall to the floor, prostrating himself in a deep, formal bow. The woman looks down at him, perplexed, and asks why he has remained in that position for so long. From the floor, Brat looks up, his expression strained. He remains bowed as she questions his motives, asking if he wants her to step on his head. Brat quickly denies this. She continues, wondering why he is bowing, if not for that reason, admitting it's awkward. With a smirk, she suggests he must be prostrating himself to admire her beautiful body, a gesture for which she is grateful. Brat appears utterly flustered by her confident declaration. She then states that in her homeland, the strong are justice and the weak are merely prey. She reveals its name, Dastria. Brat listens, his expression one of shock. Getting to his feet, he formally introduces himself as Prince Brat von Pistol and addresses her as Princess Karu of the Dastria Empire, declaring it an honor to meet her. Kaoru looks surprised, questioning his title as prince, though she admits she was aware the country had won. She observes him, remarking that she had imagined he would be more well-built. Visibly embarrassed, Brat clasps his hands and explains that a lot has happened, pleading with her not to ask for details. Kaoru sighs, dismissing the formalities. She tells him to stop calling her princess, as she is not fond of stiff etiquette, and that Kaoru is fine. He readily agrees. She then asks what business a prince has in a place like this. He replies that before they discuss that, she should put on some clothes. Now fully dressed in a sharp, dark outfit, Kaoru gets to the point. She gravely informs him that there is a high probability her nation, Dastria, will be destroyed. She reveals that she is the daughter of Cascade, one of the 7 heroes, and that she even became a female knight to serve as his companion. Apologizing for the suddenness of it all, she asked to explain the situation in order. She began to explain the grim future foretold in the game scenario. Her nation, Dastria, was fated to be annihilated in a war with the neighboring Elniad kingdom. In this conflict, her father, Cascade, and their entire clan would be massacred, leaving her as the sole survivor, forced to flee to another country. She also revealed her hostile relationship with the hero, Beelzebub. He processed her words, realizing this meant a war could break out in the near future. Kaoru continued, admitting that while she didn't understand why she was currently in Pistol, she believed it presented an opportunity to avert the catastrophic outcome she described. He questioned her motives, asking why she was sharing this information with him. Her gaze sharpened as she replied that if she remained silent, Dastria's defeat was certain. She then challenged him, asking if he had any reason to believe they could win, even if they went to war. She had thought his appearance had changed, but inwardly, she concluded that his fundamental nature remained that of the cunning black pig. She recalled a crucial detail from the game's plot. The entire conflict was a scheme orchestrated by Beelzebub in cooperation with the 4 demon generals. In that version of events, once Kaoru learned this truth, she became an ally to the hero. With that thought, she turned to leave, declaring she had no time to entertain his foolishness and that she was leaving. Startled, he called out for her to wait, insisting their discussion was not finished. She dismissed his plea, telling him not to be so persistent. Then she delivered the devastating news. Today was the day of the peace conference between her father and the Elniad kingdom. She hadn't made it in time. The realization struck Brat with full force. The conference was not for peace, but the very event that would trigger the war. Brat von Pistol urgently confronts Princess Karu, demanding to know the whereabouts of his mother, the Empress. He asked her to confirm the results of the recent meeting and check on his family's safety. Kaoru, her expression grim, holds up a small, glowing object and asks if he can hear someone named Jasher. She confirms that the meeting has concluded. Brat presses for details, wanting to know the outcome and how his mother and brother, Carl, are faring. Kaoru reports that the talks ended without incident and that both nations are now moving toward peace. Clutching the glowing stone, she reassures him that his mother and brother are both safe and well. She urges him to be at ease. She reiterates that the meeting concluded safely, with no harm coming to his family. However, her tone shifts as she delivers a sharp warning. If he, of all people, were to bring up a matter concerning his family's life, it would be inexcusable. With that, she brushes past him, leaving Brat stunned and silent. Elsewhere, during a sparring session, Albert von Pistol wonders if history has somehow changed. He questions what could be happening as a swift parry sends a jarring impact up his arm, knocking his sword aside. His opponent, Dino, compliments his excellent form. Albert, breathing heavily, looks on as a group of female students admire him, commenting that his swordsmanship is as brilliant as ever and that he is sure to win the upcoming sword dance festival. He abruptly announces that practice is over for the day and turns to leave. Dino watches him go, puzzled, remarking that the festival is fast approaching. He confirms his decision, telling Dino to put the equipment away himself before letting his own practice sword clatter to the ground. Dino observes that while Albert's swordsmanship has been amazing, he has also been losing to Brat recently. He muses that Albert seems to have reverted to his old self, from before Brad's return. His hand trembles uncontrollably as he clenches it into a fist. A wave of fury washes over him as he silently rages, questioning why his older brother is the one receiving all the praise. He hunches over, his face twisted in anguish. After everything he has done, he laments it has all come to this. He stared in disbelief, his mind reeling. The brother before him was not the one he had known for the past 2 months. It was as if he had regressed to his former self. A panicked question escaped his lips. "Who are you?" As his thoughts spiraled, a soft, mocking voice reached him. A woman with dark hair appeared, remarking on his brother's unforgettable fighting style and incomparable strength. Albert gritted his teeth, frustrated that he could hear her, but she pressed on, suggesting his real fear wasn't some trivial matter, but the deep-seated anxiety over whether he could truly defeat his brother. He recalled the duel in the courtyard, a memory of nothing but overwhelming, humiliating power. She leaned in closer, her voice a sweet poison. "You don't seem like yourself right now," she observed, a faint smile playing on her lips. "But I can make you stronger." The offer hung in the air, causing a fresh wave of sweat to bead on Albert's brow as he stared at her, stunned into silence. Turning away, she mentioned that she was also busy preparing for a show. "But don't forget," she added over her shoulder, "if you ever need power, just call for me." As she began to depart, leaving a trail of dark energy, Albert lunged forward, desperately shouting for her to wait. Meanwhile, as individuals across the land held their own private ambitions and anxieties, preparations were finalized. Princess Karu stood, cloaked in a white hood, her expression serene, with Brat von Pistol just behind her. The sword dance festival was about to begin. Later that same day, after school, Brat makes his way out of the building. His brother Albert approaches, observing that Brat seems to have regained his composure. Brat, clutching his hand, wonders if his feelings were so transparent. He is glad to see Brat back to his usual self, confidently stating that he will be the one to win their contest. From a distance, Dino Schwarzer shouts with glee, declaring that Albert's victory is assured and that it's time for a party. Dino's excitement is palpable as he announces that he has made special preparations for the victory celebration. He calls out for someone to bring him the special item he always uses for such occasions. Surrounded by 2 female classmates, he boasts about how cool the celebration will be, mentioning them by name as he revels in his party plan. Later, peering through a spyglass, he spots his target, exclaiming that he's found her. Just then, Kaoru appears behind him, asking what he is doing out here. He turns, surprised to see her. He asks if she is also attending the founding festival, remarking that she looks completely different. Indeed, Kaoru now sports prominent, dark, cat-like ears and a tail. His jaw drops in shock at her transformation. Kaoru simply confirms that she is here for the festival, her expression unreadable. 1 week later, trumpets sound across a massive arena packed with spectators. An announcer welcomes the crowd as Castrol von Pistol, the king, looks on from a high balcony with a stern gaze. As the final day of the 3-day festival arrives, Brat, Albert, Dino, and Kaoru stand together before a large entrance. A voice declares that the long-awaited main event is about to begin. He pauses, a bead of sweat trickling down his face. The voice he just heard sounds familiar. He wonders if it could possibly be who he thinks it is. He recognized that voice. From the announcer's stage, a cheerful declaration rang out, announcing that the opening ceremony would now begin. The speaker was revealed to be Loji, dressed in a striking bunny girl outfit. Winking at the crowd and holding a microphone, she enthusiastically called for the first event, the entrance of the contestants. In response to her call, the first team emerged into the arena. Prince Albert led the way with a confident salute, flanked by his friend Dino and a somber, white-cloaked coat. At the venue, Loji, dressed in a striking bunny girl outfit, loudly cheers for Brat, drawing the attention of the crowd. A flustered Dino asks Brat who the cute girl is. Brat, mortified and blushing, admits that she is his maid, realizing she must have found out about the event and come to support him. Elsewhere, Albert addresses a gathering of students, including Brat, Dino, and Karo. He announces that before the main event, he will introduce a special guest who has come from the demon race. He gestures to a figure who steps forward, Beelzebub. The demon introduces himself as one of the Demon King's generals, present as a representative. Kaoru watches with a stern expression, while Brat is visibly shocked to see such a high-ranking demon. His gaze lands directly on Brat. Beelzebub remarks with a smirk that Brat must be the infamous piggy he's heard about, encouraging him to try his best. Brat grits his teeth, realizing his old, humiliating nickname is known even to the demon generals. The direct, mocking address causes Brat to break out in a cold sweat. He glances nervously toward Beelzebub, who continues to watch him with an unnerving, knowing smile. He turns to Dino and Kaoru, explaining that if he doesn't fight with everything he has, he'll be made a laughingstock. He asks for their support, and both nod in solemn agreement. With the formalities concluded, Albert raises his arms to the cheering crowd and officially declares the start of the inter-school tournament. Across the vast arena, Kaoru and Brat share a look of mutual resolve. As he gazes at her determined face, Brat makes a silent vow to himself. He will be the one to win. The tournament begins, and Kaoru stands victorious in the arena after her first match. From the stands, Beelzebub observes her, noting that she is a formidable opponent who cannot be taken lightly. Shortly thereafter, an official rushes over to Brat and Dino, urging them to prepare for the second match, a special exhibition. Brat, looking slightly tired, confirms that his own first match has just ended in victory. He watched as the announcer's voice declared the winner, contestant Kaoru. She stood victorious in the arena, her expression composed. From the stands, Brat was taken aback. He had thought Kaoru would have some power left, but it seemed she hadn't used any magic at all. He couldn't fathom how she had accomplished this. In the tournament arena, Princess Kaoru nervously faces a much larger, muscular opponent. From his stands, Brat watches, initially thinking he would be her first match. He silently urges her to pull herself together, noting that she seems to have lost her nerve. Elsewhere in the stands, Prince Albert also observes the proceedings. He notes that it is the first match and that his brother's chosen candidate is about to compete, his expression a mixture of curiosity and scrutiny. The muscular opponent taunts Kaoru, asking if she's too scared to fight. Meanwhile, Brat calmly considers the situation, reflecting that if an opponent has a weakness, one must exploit it. As the match officially begins, the large student charges forward. Kaoru cries out Brat's name in alarm, but Brat remains composed, recognizing that the moment of truth has arrived. Her opponent roars, closing the distance with a powerful haymaker aimed directly at her. Brat watches the unfolding attack with a confident smirk. With surprising agility, Kaoru ducks under the wide swing. In a swift, decisive motion, she drives her fist squarely into the larger student's stomach, catching him completely by surprise. As her opponent staggers back, clutching his midsection, Kaoru leaps away to create distance. She gathers magical energy between her palms, shouting the name of her spell. Energy Bomb. Brat observes with satisfaction, noting that while it's a simple application of magic, its power is more than sufficient for a school competition. Kaoru then thrusts her hands forward, launching the sphere of crackling energy. The energy bomb connects, engulfing the muscular student in a bright explosion. As he is thrown back by the force, Kaoru lands gracefully. Brat smiles, confident that the single blow was enough to secure her victory. He turns to the person beside him, remarking that things are proceeding as planned. The view reveals Dino, who looks back with a serious expression and states, "It wasn't me who came." Inside an empty coliseum, Brat is approached by his classmate, Dino Schwarzer, who asks who he is and why he's there. Beside them, Logie watches, sensing something is amiss. Without warning, Dino lunges forward, his fist blurring as it rockets toward Brat's face. The friendly demeanor is gone, replaced by clear aggression. Brat reacts instantly, raising his forearm to block the powerful blow. The impact resounds through the arena as Dino's expression twists from aggression to shock at the effortless defense. He holds his ground, his gaze sharp and analytical. He registers the immense power behind the attack, yet he senses no true killing intent, confirming his suspicion that something is deeply wrong. Dropping all pretense, Brat confronts his attacker directly, his voice low and demanding. "Where's the real Dino?" The imposter's face splits into a cruel grin. He declares there's no need to answer because Brat will die here. In a flash, a hidden blade emerges, plunging into Brat's side. Before Brat can fully register the wound, the imposter follows up with a brutal kick, sending him staggering back. He sneers, telling Brat not to get cocky. Standing over the fallen prince, the imposter's face is a mask of manic glee. He muses to himself that perhaps if he'd just acted normally, his deception might have held. As he clutches his bleeding side, Brat looks up to see his brother, Albert, and Princess Ko rushing into the arena, their faces etched with alarm. Kaoru screams in terror, shouting that he's going to die. The imposter, caught completely by surprise at their arrival, whips his head around, his plans suddenly interrupted. Dino Schwarzer watches in disbelief as Brat stands frozen before his doppelganger. The imposter smirks, confirming that his sword's curse has paralyzed the prince. Seeing Brat unable to move, Dino realizes the grave danger his friend is in. From the stands, Albert turns to Princess Ko, questioning if this is her doing. She explains that while direct interference in the tournament is forbidden, she would have no choice but to intervene if a life were truly at risk. Logie looks on, her expression tight with worry. Back in the arena, Dino's face hardens with resolve. He tells Brat that while fear is understandable, this situation is different. With a burst of speed, he charges directly towards his paralyzed friend. He throws a powerful right hook, striking Brat squarely across the jaw. The force of the blow is staggering, sending a spray of sweat and saliva into the air as the spectators gasp in shock. The prince stumbles back, stunned by the assault from his own ally. Dino, his expression furious, shouts that this is what Brat gets for being a coward, declaring that he will defeat the imposter himself. From his seat, Albert watches the scene unfold with a knowing look. His anger spent, he turns back to Brat, who is now on one knee. With a heavy sigh, Dino apologizes, admitting that he went too far. He explains that he couldn't just stand by and watch Brat be killed. He clenches his fist, frustrated, stating that Brat should have been able to dodge an attack like that, implying the curse was the only reason he was hit. He tells Brat that he will handle the imposter from here on out. Looking down at his friend, he asks for forgiveness for his actions. Albert smiles faintly, observing the exchange. When Kaoru asks if Brat is okay, the second prince reassures her, noting that sometimes being hit is not a bad thing. On the arena floor, Brat remains quiet, processing what just happened. He looks up, the daze gone from his eyes, replaced by a burning intensity. With newfound resolve, he declares that he cannot afford to die either and pushes himself back to his feet. In the sunlit arena, Dino Schwarzer stares in disbelief at his opponent, Brat von Pistol, who is still standing. He stammers, utterly bewildered by Brat's resilience. He continues to sputter, calling the situation absurd. In response, Brat calmly pulls back his vest, revealing a small, ornate item pinned to his undershirt. He explains that he put it on just in case. From the stands, Albert von Pistol watches intently, wondering if his brother is using a magic item. The announcer, Loji, voices her own confusion over the microphone, questioning if poison was used. She clarifies that while some magic items are permitted, those with poison effects are strictly forbidden. Brat recalls his preparations before the match. He had primarily chosen items to boost his magic resistance and attack power. However, knowing the significant level difference made simple buffs meaningless, he also selected an item capable of inflicting a status ailment as a contingency. He smirks to himself, thinking that he was lucky the cheap item worked so quickly. This tactic doesn't go unnoticed in the crowd. A spectator remarks on the strangeness of Brat's choice, but another reasons that status ailments are dangerous regardless of one's level, making it a sound precautionary measure. Dino roars that the item isn't working on him at all, but Brat's expression is one of pure confidence. He tells Dino it's a shame, because the match is already over. He lunges forward, driving a powerful fist directly into Dino's midsection. The impact is severe, causing Dino to gasp and spit as he doubles over in pain. As Dino collapses to his knees, defeated, Loji announces the winner, Brat. While Kaoru watches silently from the stands, another young woman claps with delight, clearly impressed by the unexpected victory. Marielle Fortas watches the outcome, her hand resting gently on her chest. Her expression is soft and thoughtful, a hint of admiration in her eyes. She watched as Brat von Pistol, hoisting the unconscious Dino Schwarzer over his shoulder, addressed the arena. He announced that this was not over. He still had a mountain of questions for his opponent. Nearby, Loji looked on with a flustered expression. As he turned, a fluffy, dark, wolf-like tail suddenly sprouted from his lower back, wagging gently. An announcer's voice boomed, calling for an interview with the victor, Brat. But he was sweating, realizing with a jolt of panic that his transformation technique was beginning to wear off. He stumbled away from the center of the arena, still carrying Dino. He offered a quick thank you as he passed Loji, who could only watch him go, thinking that he was certainly a handful. From the stands, a chant began to swell, growing louder and louder as the crowd roared a single name in unison. You are. Or elsewhere, a dark-haired werewolf slammed his fist down. He angrily questioned why UR had returned to make a spectacle of himself, ranting that their clan had been called cowardly because of him. A light-haired companion listened beside him. His companion, however, grinned with fierce determination. He declared that they would show everyone their true strength through actions, not words. He vowed that they would evolve into a werewolf king. The dark-haired werewolf's surroundings suddenly changed. He found himself in a quiet forest, looking around in confusion until he saw Brat standing before him, wiping a small knife. Brat calmly stated that he was finally awake and had been difficult to carry. The werewolf could only stare back, utterly stunned. Brat gestured to their surroundings, explaining that they were in the graveyard behind the royal palace. He reassured the werewolf, who was now sitting on the ground, that he was not in any danger. Leaning in, Brat then made his purpose clear. He asked the werewolf to tell him about recent events, specifically about REINCARNATES. The werewolf's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. UR confronts Albert, demanding to know why he is so calm. He declares that Albert should be more composed, then asks for the reason behind his own agitation. He violently grabs Albert by the collar, stating that if Albert were an ordinary person, he would have been killed by now. With a tense smile, he then invites Albert to touch him. Letting go, UR gestures towards a large stone cross marking a grave. He tells Albert to look, identifying it as the grave of his older brother. He explains that if he hadn't met Albert, he would have shared his brother's fate. He recounts that his brother was cornered and sealed away right there on that spot. UR believes it was Albert's older brother, Brat, who cast the holy spell that trapped him. Albert questions if it was truly a holy spell. UR confirms it, stating that the head of his family was sealed in this very place. He then asks if Albert now understands why he came here. Suddenly, a woman with similar wolf-like features appears behind them. She chides UR for being so rough, warning that it would be troublesome if he were to be sealed away as well. She asks UR where he is going. Albert watches, realizing that this must be UR's older sister, who has come to take him back. UR ignores her, his expression hardening with resolve. He declares that he must go because that woman is there, referring to Brat von Pistol. Albert remains silent, processing the long and confusing story. He wonders aloud if this is all just a strange dream. Albert then asks UR if he knows something more, but it is UR's sister who responds, confirming that he does. She explains to Albert that UR's movements are unnaturally sharp, a sign that he is being controlled by someone else. She asks if he is listening, and Albert, with a slight, determined smile, confirms that he is. At the academy, Dino Schwarzer cheerfully offers Brat a meal, reminding him to offer a prayer first. Brat looks on, confused by the gesture. Nearby, UR has a sudden, chilling realization. He remembers that Dino was supposed to have been killed. Meanwhile, in a quiet, ornate room, Marie L. Forktas sits alone. She reflects that it has been some time since she last saw Brad, feeling that the solution to her worries is always just out of reach. A sense of longing overcomes her, and she calls out his name. As she does, the very fabric of her reality begins to unravel. The grand room shatters around her, the floor cracking and walls crumbling away to reveal a dark, turbulent sky filled with ominous clouds. From the chaos, a figure emerges. Doll Master Rionetta appears before Marie, announcing the beginning of the Nightmare's Banquet as the world warps into a sinister landscape. Elsewhere, the other students, including Albert and Dino, are thrown into confusion. The muscular student shouts, demanding to know what is happening as the strange phenomenon envelopes them. A large, bald instructor informs the panicked students that the entire school has been isolated by a powerful barrier. Looking out at the unsettling sky, the muscular student remarks on the deeply ominous atmosphere that has descended upon them. Back in the distorted space, Rionetta smiles cruelly at Marie. She suggests they begin by reviving the dead, explaining that this test requires a sacrifice. She turns to her doll, Arietta, and asks for her agreement. Marie stands firm against the threat, her expression hardening with resolve. She declares that she will not forgive anyone who would dare to harm innocent people. Her defiance only amuses Rionetta, who coolly informs Marie that she is already caught. With a confident smirk, she announces that the preparations are complete and the shadow hunt has begun. Instantly, shadowy, formless hands erupt from the ground beneath Marie. They seize her arms and legs, restraining her completely as she cries out in shock and surprise. Marie L. Forktas looks on in disbelief, asking what is happening. The doll master, Rionetta, explains coolly that it is a request from the king, a life-and-death battle between the obstructors. She adds that the students have no say in the matter, and Marie has no right to refuse. The scene shifts to a vast arena where a lone figure stands in the center under a bright light. From the stands, Marie questions the meaning of a life-and-death battle, noting that the two scheduled to fight, Dino and Brat, are missing. She wonders if they were killed. Beside her, Cascade explains that the tournament was arranged in a hurry, and that two individuals were chosen to settle things. He continues, remarking on the immense residual magic in the air, speculating it could be from one of the 7 heroes or even Beelzebub. Turning, he announces that he has a guest. A young woman with dark hair, Princess Karu, stands before him in revealing attire. Cascade gestures towards the arena and tells her to get to it. She steps forward with determination, telling Cascade to leave it to her. Her gaze fixes on someone in the stands as she remarks, "Oh, darling, so you were here." Her words reach Rionetta, who muses that Kaeru was always by her side. From the arena floor, Kaeru agrees, stating that she was always there, just like Rionetta. In response, Rionetta's expression hardens. With a flick of her wrist, an unseen force slams into Kaeru, sending her flying backward with a cry of pain. Rionetta calmly utters the name of her technique, Shadow Guard. As she does, dark, shadowy tendrils erupt from the ground, surrounding the stunned Kaeru. The shadows lash out, striking Kaeru with brutal force. She screams as the impact throws her through the air, leaving a trail of blood. From her vantage point, Rionetta looks down upon the arena, remarking that Kaeru was a fool. Beside her, Marie stares in horror at the overwhelming display of magical power. The attack ceases, leaving Kaeru broken on the arena floor. Her eyes are barely open as she weakly utters her own name, her consciousness fading. From a high balcony, Princess Kaeru listens in horror. The story being told is about her. She grits her teeth, overwhelmed by the realization of how far her brother went to protect her. On the stage below, Cascade declares that the royal family has no right to rule and that the king must be punished for his crimes. Kaeru recognizes him, realizing that the man speaking is one of the 7 heroes. As she processes his words, a memory surfaces of her brother, pale and desperate, telling her to run. She understands now that he was trying to save her all along. Cascade's voice echoes across the plaza as he accuses the royal family of sacrificing the entire village of Mura to summon a demon for their own selfish desires, insisting this is the undeniable truth. His accusation is met with a mocking laugh. Doll Master Rionetta appears, questioning his naivety. She reveals that the royal family was not the only party with the power to perform such a ritual. In the crowd, Marie L. Forktas's expression hardens as she watches. Cascade turns, surprised by the new arrival, and sees Marie. He thanks her for coming to such a place. He suddenly seizes her arm, his smile turning sinister. He expresses his joy at having lived to see this day and declares his intent to offer her as a sacrifice. A dark energy begins to swirl around his hand. She, however, remains unfazed. Marie explains she was lured there by a message that her fiancé was in danger. Clenching her other hand into a fist, she states firmly that she will not allow him to touch her. Her voice rings with authority as she declares that as the future queen of the Pishtal Kingdom, she will never allow him to harm its people. Cascade stares in disbelief for a moment before he is struck down, collapsing to the ground as Marie stands over his defeated form. Just then, Albert von Pishtal steps forward with a confident smile. He compliments Marie on her fine speech and calmly states that he will take care of the rest. As the second prince took control of the scene, The immediate aftermath of the duel settled upon those involved. Marie, her composure finally breaking, clung to Albert's arm. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed how terrified she had been. Nearby, the defeated Cascade looked down towards Kaoru, his voice low but firm as he gave a single command: to remember. Kaoru, her eyes wide, acknowledged the peril they had just faced, affirming that it had been truly dangerous. Brat von Pistol gently places a hand on Marie L. Fortes's head, reassuring her that everything is all right now and that she can leave the rest to him. Marie looks up at him, still dazed from her ordeal, as Brat watches her with a serious expression. She then turns away, clutching a small, glowing object in her hand. He pats her head, at first a bit clumsily, then with a softer, more comforting rhythm. Marie flinches initially, but soon settles under his touch. She turns back towards him, flustered and blushing, and bows deeply. She thanks him profusely for saving her. Brat, taken aback by her formality, insists that she's fine now and that everyone can rely on him. He accepts her gratitude with a small, understanding smile. Marie keeps her head bowed, her blush deepening. With a sudden burst of energy, he leaps onto the balcony railing, a wide grin spreading across his face. He teases her, declaring that if she tries her best, he'll reward her with a kiss. Marie is utterly aghast, shouting in disbelief and questioning why he would say such a thing at a time like this. He laughs, clarifying that it was just a joke. He then mentions that he's been offered an annulment of their engagement, suggesting they postpone the tournament. He tells her to reconsider at another time. Marie watches him, a faint smile playing on her lips as she thinks to herself that he's once again acting on his own whims. From a royal box above, a stern voice calls out, asking if that is Brat. The man, Cascade, looks down with disapproval, muttering Brat's name. Perched on the railing, Brat turns in surprise toward the sound. His surprise quickly melts into a confident grin. He calls back that it's only natural, thanks the man, and tells him to leave the rest to him. With a final push, he vaults over the railing and drops into the arena below. As he lands, he remarks to himself that it has been a while since he last spoke with his old man. Across the field, the doll master Rionetta waits. The two face each other across the stone expanse. Rionetta's expression is one of surprise. She addresses him by his full name, Brat von Pistol, and states with intrigue that he was the one she had chosen. Brat stares back, his gaze sharp and unwavering. He listens as Rionetta informs him that he is too late, as her show has already begun. She mockingly calls it an honor that he would wait for her. His attention is drawn to the wider chaos. While a skirmish has caused an uproar in the capital, it seems manageable. He is asked what he intends to do about the situation. He turns away, his expression strained as he declares that it is impossible for him to do anything. His words send a wave of shock through his companions. Marie, Cascade, and even the doll Arietta stare in utter disbelief. Rionetta, however, laughs with triumph. She gloats that with the Holy Mother sealed, there is no way to stop the turmoil. Acknowledging that some things in the world simply cannot be saved, she impatiently urges him to resolve the matter quickly. He calmly echoes her sentiment, questioning if there truly are things that cannot be saved. His quiet agreement seems to puzzle Rionetta. He then clarifies his position with a faint, confident smile. He confirms that he cannot do anything about this situation, because he cannot be the one to save them. His gaze is firm as he reveals his true meaning. He is not the savior this time. As Marie clasps her hands in prayer and Cascade watches intently, a different power begins to manifest. That power erupts from the arena's center, where Marie stands bathed in a brilliant, holy light, unleashing a powerful spell. Area purification. The sudden and immense display of holy magic leaves Rionetta utterly stunned, her confident demeanor shattering in an instant. As the holy light receded, its effects were immediate. One of the controlled students, Dino, blinked slowly, a flicker of awareness returning to his eyes as he murmured in confusion. Behind him, another student cried out, shouting an apology for an act he could not yet remember. His confusion was echoed across the courtyard. The entire student body, previously a mindless mob, began to stir. A cacophony of questions rose from the crowd as they looked at their own hands and at each other, trying to piece together lost time. They wondered aloud what they had been doing and where they were, an inexplicable urge to apologize sweeping through them all. Witnessing her puppets regain their senses, Rionetta could only stare in utter disbelief, demanding to know what was happening. From a distance, Brat von Pistol watched her breakdown with satisfaction. He turned to Marie, who stood gracefully beside him, and remarked with a grin how easily she had cured everyone. He declared that she was truly a goddess. A young woman in a bunny outfit frantically searches her surroundings, her voice filled with panic as she calls out for someone named Saints, desperately wondering what has happened. Her search is interrupted by a tense confrontation. Rionetta glares, recognizing the woman before her as the Virgin of Salvation. Sully meets her gaze with a calm smile, pointedly asking why Rionetta is there. In response, Rionetta scoffs with renewed confidence. She was certain she had just sealed her opponent in another dimension. Her certainty vanishes when she turns and sees a small, shadowy creature has appeared on the stage right behind her. Before she can react, a shadowy hand erupts from the darkness and seizes her. With a sharp cry of disbelief, Rionetta begins to laugh, realizing in an instant that she's been utterly deceived. The small creature's form dissolves into a swirling vortex. It speaks of a contract with a great darkness in an open corridor, a path that should only be known to the demon lord. Rionetta stares, her mind racing to understand the trap. The vortex is suddenly grabbed and crushed. You are, a young man with wolf-like features, appears with a triumphant grin, declaring it was too bad for her. Rionetta is stunned, demanding to know why the werewolf lord's brother is there. Watching from a distance, Dino Schwarzer addresses Rionetta. He states that he was right to trust the words of the prince, as it allowed him to see through her spell. He continues, revealing that he had received information about her entire plan. Everything she was plotting, he explains, was completely transparent to him. Rionetta's expression darkens with the realization that her scheme was known from the start. He then turns to Selly, explaining the final piece of the counterplan. To protect Selly from her own powerful bewitching magic, he had UR act as her body double. In the background, UR bows deeply, his mission accomplished. Dino reflects internally on the details. Rionetta had planned to use a technique called Nightmare Mirage to overthrow the state during the final quest. He considers how fortunate it was that he knew the countermeasure, and how convenient UR's transformation ability had been. His successful countermove elicited immediate reactions. Cascade praised Brat for a job well done, while Marie expressed her astonishment that the prince had foreseen events so far in advance. Logie, utterly starstruck, could only think of how incredible her master was. Rionetta, however, was not yet defeated. She conceded that her plan had been anticipated, but dismissed it as a minor issue. With a confident smile, she revealed that the monsters she had waiting in the forest would now simply march on the royal capital. She elaborated on her true objective as Dino and UR watched from a distance. Her goal, she explained, had always been to gather the negative emotions of the populace to revive the Demon King, a feat she could still accomplish. She assured Arietta that the forest monsters would overwhelm the capital's forces, and the resulting despair would be collected by the magic stones. To punctuate her declaration, Rionetta triumphantly held up a small, glowing cage. Inside, Selly's familiar, Laud, remained completely still and silent. The creature's lack of response wiped the smile from Rionetta's face, her confidence instantly replaced with wide-eyed confusion. In that brief moment of shock, a sudden, sharp sound cut through the air as an unseen blade swung true. Meanwhile, deep within the forest, Guras Striesman faced the massive horde of monsters Rionetta had spoken of. He let out a weary yawn, unimpressed by their sheer numbers. Without hesitation, he unleashed a torrent of fire, incinerating the front lines. Nearby, Merlin complained about the overwhelming number of foes, grumbling that the little brat had split their forces and left him to deal with this mess alone. Uras turned to his companion, asking what he made of the prince who had orchestrated this entire defense. He openly wondered if Brat was even human. The question hung in the air as, elsewhere, Dino Schwarzer looked on, a calm, knowing smile on his face. A trio of reptilian monsters roars, charging forward with aggressive intent. Facing the onslaught, Guras Striesman's eyes narrow with sharp, unwavering focus. His hand tightens around the hilt of his massive blade, the metal glinting as he prepares to act. He stands within a glowing magic circle, a confident smile playing on his lips as he invokes his technique. Absolute territory. In a flash of steel, he unleashes a devastating series of slashes, striking down all three creatures in a single, fluid motion. With the immediate threat dispatched, he glances over his shoulder, his gaze finding the great sage, Marin, standing amongst the trees. Marin observes the aftermath, remarking that even for someone like Uras, dealing with Brat is no simple matter. Uras turns back with a wry grin, confessing that, in truth, he doesn't understand Brad in the slightest. The scene shifts abruptly to the rustling leaves of the forest as an unseen person expresses their confusion. Their voice continues, explaining that this was the situation, revealing the entire battle was a recollection being shared within an empty arena. After a moment of silence, Brat von Pistol speaks with a steady gaze, telling Rionetta that it is time for her to give up. She gasps in surprise, holding up a small, caged magic stone. She retorts that the stone is no longer siphoning magic from people, declaring that his plan has ended in complete failure. Her glare intensifies as she addresses him by his full name, Brat von Pistol, demanding to know what he truly is. He simply stares back, his own expression unreadable. His gaze remains fixed as he considers her question. The perspective widens to show them standing far apart in a vast, empty coliseum. He begins to answer her, murmuring, "I am." A confident smile spreads across his face as he finishes his thought. He is simply a prince of a country, he declares, who wishes to avoid his own death flags. His seemingly flippant answer makes her face contort with rage. She furiously unleashes a volley of shadowed daggers, screaming at him not to mock her. The projectiles whistle past as he sidesteps with ease, calmly observing that she intends to fight. He asks her to at least listen to what he has to say, explaining that he doesn't have time to be her opponent and that she should let him finish his explanation. Ignoring his words, she lunges forward to strike him directly, but he catches her attacking arm with a single hand, stopping her momentum completely as the impact reverberates through the air. He holds her fast, leaning in close to speak directly to her. He urges her to listen, beginning to explain what he is capable of. Stunned, she can only stammer, demanding to know why her attack failed to connect. He calmly explained that thanks to someone named Faik, he had memorized all of her action patterns, which was why he could evade every move. With a dagger now pressed against her throat, he commanded her to listen, making an astonishing offer. He could help her sister. The declaration left Rionetta utterly stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. Brat Von Pistol steps forward with a confident smile, calling out to reassure his companion. He tells them everything is fine and asks them to leave the matter in his hands. Rionetta stares back at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. She demands to know why he is there and how he could possibly know about her sister. Her shock quickly hardens into a cold, focused resolve as she glares at the young prince. The scene shifts to a memory of a rainy street. An older man stands under the cover of a doorway, addressing a lone figure below. He asks who they are, stating that they have the wrong house and are interrupting an important meeting. His expression softens as he recognizes the figure as a young Rionetta, soaked by the downpour. He remarks that she must be cold and urges her to hurry home. She looks up, her eyes shadowed by her bangs, and dismisses his concern with a faint smile, saying it is only rain. The man is visibly taken aback by her strange response, his own smile faltering. In an instant, Rionetta closes the distance, grabbing the man by his collar. With a cold expression, she apologizes for interrupting his plot to overthrow the royal family. She declares that she is acting on a direct order from the Rima theocracy to eliminate him and his co-conspirators. A blade plunges into his stomach, and he collapses in agony. The history of her family is recalled. For generations, the Brunel house served the Rima theocracy as the Child Eaters, a family of shadow assassins. The memory shows Rionetta ascending a blood-splattered staircase, leaving the man's body behind. But then, one day, something changed. The flashback concludes as a young Rionetta pushes open a grand door, from which a pool of blood seeps. She calls out cheerfully to her father and mother, announcing that she is home. She stares in horror at the carnage. The bodies of her family lie slain across the ornate rug, while an armored soldier stands over them, his duty fulfilled. The soldier remarks to his comrade that the palace is much quieter now and orders the bodies to be disposed of. From the floor, her dying father gasps a final warning for his other daughter, Ari, to run. The young Rionetta cries out to him, announcing she has returned, but it is too late. The sounds of the slaughter reach outside, where her younger sister, carrying a basket of freshly picked flowers, freezes in terror. The basket slips from her grasp, scattering the white blossoms. This terror propels Rionetta into a desperate flight, her face a mask of panic and exertion. Her sister calls out, pleading for her to wait, but Rionetta cannot stop. The grim truth settles in her mind. The Brunel family was nothing more than a disposable blade. The reason for this betrayal was political. As the Brunels' dark work as assassins became public knowledge, the Rima royal family, who commanded them, began to be shunned by the world. In response to this mounting pressure, the kingdom turned on its own shadow warriors, beginning a ruthless persecution of the Brunel family. Her flight from these pursuers is long, but she finally reaches a secluded house by the sea, believing it to be a safe haven. She opens the door, announcing her return. From inside, a cheerful voice calls back, playfully chiding her for being late. Inside, her sister Ari is eating. She happily reports that the scary people didn't come today and adds that she made soup with Rionetta's favorite mushrooms. Looking at her innocent sister, a gentle, protective smile forms on Rionetta's face. She jolted, the memory of her sister's bright laughter echoing in her mind. Ari had been so full of life, urging her to eat quickly. But that fleeting peace had shattered. After finding refuge on a remote peninsula, Ari, a local spirit, was exposed to the land's potent magic and fell victim to the curse of the dark spirit. It was a powerful malediction, one that trapped its victim in darkness, a curse of eternal sleep from which she would never awaken. Rionetta sits alone, contemplating her circumstances. She wonders how far fate intends to drag her, and how much more it will take from her. Her mind drifts back to a desperate time. After trying everything to awaken her sister, Arietta, without success, the demon Beelzebub appeared. He offered a deal. He would help her sister if Rionetta pledged her cooperation to the Demon King's army. Returning to the present, she explains to Brat that this is how she came to join their forces. Though she doesn't understand how he knows about her sister, she confesses that she has grown weary of trusting others. He listens intently before posing a single, critical question. He asks why, being so suspicious of others, she would trust a demon like Beelzebub and cooperate so fully with the Demon King's army. Rionetta reveals the reason. Beelzebub bound her with a sword oath. She explains that it is a powerful form of contract magic, and if she were to break it, she would lose her life. Brat realizes she has staked everything on this path. With a newfound resolve, Brat clenches his fist. He looks directly at her and declares that he will make that same oath with her. His proposal stuns Rionetta, who questions why he would do such a thing for her, a stranger with no connection to him. In the stands, Selly watches in disbelief, while UR shouts in outrage, demanding to know what Brat is thinking. Watching from a distance, Marie reflects that to win Brat's trust, one must be prepared for such measures. Though she can't hear clearly, she thinks she caught the word death. Brat clarifies his offer. In exchange for him saving her sister, she must withdraw her forces from the kingdom. He suggests that it's not a bad deal for either of them. She stares back at him, her expression unreadable as she silently considers the impossible proposal. Her gaze meets his, a silent, tense moment of decision hanging between them. After a moment of silent consideration, she gives her answer. She agrees to the contract, noting that the current situation was inconvenient for her side anyway. Brad is visibly startled by her quick acceptance. He reacts with pure, unbridled joy, clasping her gloved hand in both of his and thanking her profusely with a brilliant smile. Rianetta looks away, slightly taken aback, as Arietta and Uar watch the exchange. His earnestness catches her completely off guard, bringing a deep blush to her face. Perched on her shoulder, Arietta impatiently tells her to get on with it. Stepping forward, Rianetta begins the ritual. A complex magic circle illuminates the ground beneath her feet as the sky overhead darkens. As magical energy gathers around her, she begins the incantation, vowing to bind her life to his and never betray him. Brat watches intently, recognizing this as the highest form of contract magic. The swirling energy coalesces between her hands, forming the distinct shape of a sword's blade, shimmering with dark power. She presents the ethereal hilt to Brat, who reaches out to accept it. From a nearby doorway, Loji watches the secret ceremony with wide, concerned eyes. He accepts, lightly pricking his finger on the blade's tip. A single drop of his blood falls before Rianetta takes his hand and brings the finger to her lips, tasting the blood to seal their pact. With the pact sealed in blood, the ritual concludes. The energy solidifies into a physical sword in her hands. She holds it before him and asks if he swears upon this sword to break her sister's curse. With the sword of the oath now a tangible reality between them, she met his gaze with resolve. "Let's swear it," she affirmed. Brad held the glowing blade forward, ready to finalize their pact. He smiled gently, sensing her lingering hesitation. Rianetta asked one last time if he was truly certain about this. He simply instructed her to relax her power, and she quietly agreed. The moment she consented, the sword of the oath erupted in a blinding flash of white light. The magical energy surged outwards, illuminating the entirety of the grand, empty coliseum where they stood. As the light subsided, he closed his eyes, a faint smile on his lips. He announced that the contract was now complete.